Today is January 27th, 2026, 6:30 p.m. Welcome to a regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Palos Verdes Estates. And I am pleased to officially call the meeting to order. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That, City Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember McGowan.
Here.
Councilmember Quinn.
Here.
Councilmember Lozey. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Lozaro.
Here.
And Mayor Kemps.
I am also here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. On to the approval of the agenda. Do any council members have any agenda changes or requests? And if not, may I have
motion to approve?
Motion to
Second.
approve. Here we go. Motion, Councilmember Quinn. Second, Councilmember, I'm so used to calling you Mayor. Councilmember Lozey. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Good. On to the mayor's report. You all know from my initial meeting that I love quoting my now favorite social media poster, Ferris, Texas City Manager, Dr. Brooks Williams. And when I was thinking about what to say tonight, before I actually got to it, I read this post, so I'm gonna read it back. And hopefully you're also enjoying the show that's referenced in these comments. People binge watch Landman and love that it captures the closed door conversations, the controlled smiles, the leverage, the quiet intimidation, and the reality that someone always walks out thinking they won. Money's on the table, egos are on the table, someone's always bluffing, someone's always threatening, and the next move is never just a move, it's a chain reaction. Now, take that energy and strip away the luxury of privacy, strip away the ability to walk away, strip away the ability to pick your customers, strip away the ability to say, not my problem, and then bolt public safety, infrastructure, elections, open records, procurement law, auditors, and lawsuits onto your back like a rucksack that you never get to set down. That is local government, and that is city management. The public thinks the drama is a show. In this profession, the drama is a Tuesday that starts at 6:30 a.m. with a call about a water alarm. Maybe not in this city, but turns into a meeting about a vendor, slides into a budget conversation where the math has to math, but the expectations are imaginary, and ends at 11:47 p.m. with a text that begins, "I hate to bother you, but..." Right before someone tells you an officer has a situation, a dispatcher is short, the council packet has a grenade in it, a phone rings, or a staff member just did something that is about to become tomorrow's viral social media post. And then someone says, I actually like this quote, "Government should be run like a business." Fine, challenge accepted, let's talk business. The profit in local government is not a payout, it's not a bonus, it's not a private exit, it's reserves, it's fund balance. It's the only breathing room you have when sales tax dips, when inflation hits your contracts, when an insurer rewrites the rules, when a critical piece of equipment fails, when a storm punishes your streets, when a grant gets delayed, when a single bad decision creates a legal bill that eats a department alive. And then you get the fun stuff that social media loves, the scandals, the late night building access, the lawsuits, the retaliations, the theatrics, the accusations, the whisper campaigns, the anonymous leaks, the grandstanding that turns governance into performance. And that, or this, is why the job ages people. You're trying to run an organization that has to function every day, no matter who's mad, no matter who's lying, no matter who's posturing, no matter who's trying to turn your town into their personal stage. So yes, welcome to local government. If Landman is your window into pressure, city management is that same pressure layered with public exposure, legal constraint, moral responsibility, and the fact that failure does not just hurt a balance sheet, failure hurts a community. Anyway, I liked it. On that note, I'm pleased to ask our city manager for his report, after which I will gladly take you through the slides that I did for the Palos Verdes Breakfast Club.
All right, thank you, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, and members of the City Council and the public. I just have a few brief comments. Our print newsletter is out. It should have hit mailboxes. A copy was put on my desk today. That means that it's hit the mailboxes. I hope you like it. I also wanted to share that on February 1st, as part of the PVE Cares program, and Kristen Joe, who works in our police department, they're having another brain games activity, and they're going to bring local seniors and students together to play brain games. So it's going to be at the Peninsula Library from 1 to 2 on February 1st. And then lastly, just to report to the community and the council that last week our deputy city manager attended the Liebert Cassidy Whitmore's annual labor law conference. I know we sent several staff members last year, and we sent.
Was it laborious?
What's that?
Was it laborious?
Was it what?
Never mind.
I didn't hear it.
Lawyer, conference, was it laborious?
George is now going to give you a 15-minute review of the highlights of the conference. Yeah. Anyways, that's all I have for tonight. I will turn it back to you. Oh, and our chief of police has 2 reports tonight, so he was not able to prepare remarks. So anyways, I'll turn it back to you.
Why? Thank you. Okay, so I'll buzz through these as reasonably quickly as I can. I was asked to pull together a presentation. Every year, the Palos Verdes Breakfast Club asks the incoming mayor to do a State of the City presentation, and each year that our budget gets more challenging, every person says, geez, I hope I'm not the mayor for this. No, I'm kidding. It was extremely well attended. I think it was well received, so take you through it, and let's see how this goes. George, is it up arrow or down? Hopefully. You got it. Good job. So this is a combination of slides. The slides that some of the slides were used in some of the town hall work that was done. There's a couple things I'm passionate about that I added into this. And then there's a couple slides at the end that the Breakfast Club didn't get to see that you will hopefully enjoy, and we can get some council discussion and public comments, and hopefully we're all still standing. So this will share a semi-clear picture of where the city stands today. Talk about priorities, and then of course for public comment here directly from residents. What makes us unique? I think we take this in some cases for granted, and I think we know it, but it's worth repeating. We are primarily and always have been a residential community. It was originally intended to have more commercial than it even currently does, and so that revenue is limited. And being where we are and what our expectations are, we have high expectations for safety, services, and infrastructure. We enjoy strong property values and thoroughly enjoy our quality of life. So what core services do we expect? Some of this is obvious, but much of it comes from relatively recent polling that was done. Obviously, we want fast 911 emergency response times. We want police and fire protection. Wildfire prevention and weed abatement, even more so now after what we've watched and witnessed relative to the Palisades fire, as well as the Altadena disasters. And it goes without saying that we want well-maintained streets, sewers, and facilities. This graph has been pasted and presented, many times from, at least while I've been around watching it, from the FAC, the Financial Advisory Committee, to, numerous presentations from various finance directors, city managers, and councils. It's sort of, various things have escalated. Some as expected, some higher than inflation, and more recently we've had to use reserves to bridge that gap. Where the money comes from and where it goes. Another one that's shown over and over again are the overarching theme being that property tax and parcel taxes on that graph make up 73%. Concessions, in particular the golf club, provide a significant revenue source, and then there's the balance. Where it goes, obviously heavily into public safety, including police and fire and public works, and the balance of operations and community development. It should be noted that quite a bit of the community development number is billed back on a rate schedule and reimbursed. Sort of what I just said here, but I think the comment about few alternative revenue streams, stands. We've looked at various things over time. Our revenues are limited on commercial, and even the other opportunities are, on a percentage basis, small. Property tax constraints. Proposition 13 for residents is a wonderful thing. It controls and allows many of us to continue to be able to live here, and it limits our upward growth. I think the challenge is, and you'll see on this and following slides, that PVE receives about 11% of each property tax dollar. And many residents will say when they're not so familiar with the situation, they'll look at it and they'll say, well, geez, I just paid an X $1,000 property tax bill. What do you mean the city's challenged? And the answer is a combination of the 11% and how we ended up contracting for fire services, not picking on the guy in the room, and how that's arranged. And it occurred as a result of becoming a contract city as a result of having originally our own fire department. You can see the comparative cities. There's a delta in the fact that they are in a district and they have fire covered and then receive the balance of revenue, whereas we receive the revenue and then have to keep up with and pay for the contract that's provided to us. So what is current Measure E? It generates approximately $5.1 million annually, funds a portion of police services, and that is coming up for expiration. Note the comment at the bottom where collections continue through fiscal year 26-27 with final bills issued November and February. So whether we have Measure E or we don't, expenses outpace revenues. We will have challenges either way. Without it, the challenges obviously will be much greater. And when we talk about what's in it, what's not in it, we tend to talk a lot about operational expenses. And the last comment there to the right, deferred maintenance continues to grow because it's really not directly measured. You can look at and estimate depreciation, for example, but that doesn't come directly back in. Welcome. Rising cost pressures. I think we've said all this. Two things to add. Technology systems are lagging behind. We've done a lot of work to get much of the server infrastructure and systems out of the disaster room that's downstairs in this building and move those to the cloud. Some of it can't go because of public safety restrictions. One thing that we haven't been able to address is the system that's currently running accounting and ERP. Yeah? Fortunately, we see it. It's only blinking on you. You're good. Pension obligations. There's further slides on that coming, so I'll keep going. Here we are. So where are we today? As measured by CalPERS, our UAL is approximately $20 million. It's increased by several $1 million. The net result of that is that the annual payments continue to increase. When I first started closely looking at this, they were about $800,000 a year. Now they're approaching $2 million annually. So in simple math, avoiding all the actuarial magic, that's $1.2 million a year that you all don't get to spend on something else. So how do we get it under control? We can't just meet the obligations that they tell us to meet and materially reduce the debt. If we're required today to pay a $2 million payment and we're watching our debt escalate via a variety of sources, whether it's GovInvest or whatever they call it today, or others looking at the math, it's in the neighborhood of $1.X million that we're going to need to pay per year to start pushing those funded ratios to exceed 90%. And when I say that, I mean fully funded plans dropping the UAL, which then ultimately reduces pressure on the general fund and those recurring payments. Some like to call this, sort of like paying down a mortgage. It really isn't exactly the same because of the actuarial science, or actuarial art more than science. But the bottom line is we need to catch it. In the time period that at least 3 of us sitting up here have been elected, we've thrown about $2 million extra at this. That has not been enough. It's helped, but it's not been enough to push the trajectory downward. What else? We have capital needs. Meeting after meeting, we hear about CIP, we hear about storm drains, challenges with road maintenance. Some of it's funded with local measures, but there's others that remain. City facilities become a hot button. Whether it's repair very aging things that are in the building in order to just hold it together, or do something different, I don't know, but it's a challenge. Trails, trees, open space. 28% of our city is beautiful parkland. We have trails. We have, continuing increasing costs. We have, preferences around what we do or don't want to use relative to pesticides, and those choices and those decisions cost money. Public safety investments. We hear repeatedly that we want our police department maintained. We want fast emergency response time, whether it's police or fire. We want emergency preparedness and readiness. So what's happening today? This top one is a hot button. When for some reason people say it, the city workforce was reduced, and how did you do that? What do you mean by that? Well, I have it on the next couple slides. I'll share it. Deferred repairs and maintenance we've talked about, and we're now into the period where we're using reserves to quote unquote balance a structurally imbalanced and now cash deficit budget. Predicted, occurring, here we are. Some contractual expenditures were reduced. Many others increased due to inflation and other choices. And in the 2021/2 period, ARPA, which was federal grants federal that flew through the state, grants that came to the city as a result of the COVID period, and reimbursements of about $3 million offset some of the gaps and challenges at the time in our budget. So here's what staffing looks like in the city over time. And it's interesting, if you look at the 16-17 period when things were operating quote unquote normally, there were 63 point, I don't know where they get the point to, obviously a part-time employee. I want to see a person shaved.
Part-time.
Yeah, I want to see a person shaved into .2 and see what that looks like. Anyway, 63 plus or minus. And then gradually, as a result of the Measure D failure, the passage of E, constant attempt to squeeze, we end up in the 54 range, and then pretty consistently have vacancies of 7 to 8 on the right, as you can see. So the city's operating consistently with about 47 employees and contractors as opposed to the 63 that it once had. So in practice, what happened? The councils and police department went through 2 pretty significant studies that reduced staffing. I'm not going to sit and read every single position up there, but every bullet point that's on that list, however you feel about it or you don't, the department's operating without. Public works and maintenance are largely unchanged since 2017. There was one position that is noted as being changed prior to 2015. That said, that last comment, and those that were paying attention saw it in our budget challenges. Tree maintenance services are underfunded. We cut it, we put it back. It probably needs more, but that's the story. So here is that exact example. We reduced funding to try and squeeze out some of the deficit, and even a desire to keep up with and trim trees. We couldn't even get to some of that. We were having challenges funding emergency tree trimming. And so we were pressed to return those to prior levels to an absolute minimum, which we approved. So what happens if nothing changes? I I'm not a big fan of the fear slide. If you don't do this, that'll happen. I think people are intelligent adults. Our residents are very smart. They understand what's going to happen if things aren't funded. We'll have to make choices. The challenge is that when sales can't increase, it's not a business, right? So when funding is eliminated or reduced, hard choices need to be had, and it is what it is. What's the community want from surveys? Reducing fire risk, it's rather obvious, comes back over and over again. There's a current effort with 2 RFPs to seek greater use of goats and natural sources. That's on the street. We're expecting it back. Obviously, maintaining fire protection services, one of the items on the agenda tonight. Helping prevent thefts and home burglaries. Some of those numbers have gone in the right direction. Hopefully that'll continue. Requiring that all funds be utilized locally is a huge priority. Maintaining the city's financial stability. I think that means different things to different people. The bottom line is we need to operate a balanced budget. We need to control debt and make wise decisions. How those pucks get moved around on the board, one way or another, we need to maintain financial stability. Maintaining 911 response time, public safety, and wildfires. So what's the current process? What's the role of the city? And, geez, guys, why aren't you talking about some of this up there? Or what are you saying or not saying up there? There is a citizen-led initiative that is presently underway. Those signatures that are required for that have been submitted to the city clerk and have been forwarded to the county, and they are under review. While that's going on, we're limited to sharing sort of what you're seeing up here. Facts, data, financial impacts. You don't see us talking about what's proposed, how the funds would be utilized, et cetera, because by law, the city cannot advocate for or against that effort. I'd love to say about 3 more paragraphs, and I'm going to stop there. Residents will determine the passage of the measure at the ballot box. So what's next? Continued public engagement. Another look at the long-term financial planning forecast in collaboration with the FAC. We've gone through and caught up with audits, and so as of the last meeting, we had that done. That's good to see. And then evaluating sustainable options one way or another and listening to community feedback, some of which we'll do shortly. So that was the end of the Breakfast Club presentation. And what I thought might be interesting and helpful was I went back to staff and said, hey, look, we were elected 18, 19 range. Let's compare what's changed, because inevitably everybody's going to look at it and say, well, geez, Measure E was X, what do you need? And so, again, reminding you that we're talking operational expense here. We're not covering pensions. We're not dealing with capital infrastructure, any of that. I just wanted to compare side by side what some of this looks like. So the police department went from 7.1 to 8.2, even with reduced staffing. Fire contract up $2.2 million. CalPERS payment, and depending on when you measure it, it's either 800 or 524. This 524 goes back a little further in time. But either way, there's a 7-figure, delta there. Big increases in landscape maintenance and fire safety weed abatement. The fire safety weed abatement contract actually the year before this was even higher. So right there is a difference that you can see the math that's coming on the next slide. No capital, no pensions. There it is. So that was that. There were a lot more jokes and comedy in the presentation at the Breakfast Club than there was tonight. This was a little bit more serious. And they were all of good humor, and so there it is. Typically, it's posted on the website. I wanted to actually re-give it so that you could see it here.
Good job. And is it posted on the website? I didn't see it
It's going to
posted
be-
on the agenda.
It's going to be posted.
Gotcha,
He wanted to give me the pleasure of giving it without everybody having seen it, I guess.
gotcha.
So, yes, it will definitely be posted on the website. So, thoughts, everyone, and then we'll go to public comment?
I'll jump in. I think the slide showing that for the past few years we've been living with 47 employees and the city used to have 63 employees is one of the most important slides for us to think about as policymakers and for the residents to be aware of as they consider what kind of a city they want. Because, I grew up here in Palos Verdes Estates. And my family's been here since the 1950s. I've lived here since 1990. And I don't remember a city in the 90s and early 2000s that was struggling as much as we seem to be struggling now to keep up with some of the requirements of maintaining a city, whether that's simple things like a stop sign gets knocked down and how long does it take to replace it, or a much more complex thing like the state of California issues some new mandate that they weren't really doing back then around housing and ADUs and how big you're going to allow people to build on a lot and so forth and so on and so on. And really at the end of the day, operationally, dealing with all of those types of things requires people. And maybe someday that'll be replaced by AI, right? We've all heard about
You're dreaming, dude.
the AI revolution, but
AI is going to fix the stop sign?
Yeah, I'm in the industry and you're dreaming.
that was a joke. But my point really is that all of those things take people. And I see a city, having been a planning commissioner for 8 years and having some sort of view into the city, but now having been a council member for 1 year, I see a city that is really struggling with the staffing that we have and needs more people to, do some of the basic work of running this city. The other thing I'll point out is, this really only captures a lot of what we've talked about. Really, kind of only captures, as you said, the operational needs. Right? We have, a badly aging city hall. We have roads that need maintenance, just to keep them from potentially being damaged by water and landslide type activity, et cetera. We have water intrusion issues in this part of the city. There are some significant costs. Some of it will be covered by grants, some of it will not be. Some of it, the next step is to do an engineering design or a study to be able to get the grant. And right now, we don't even have enough money to do those things, right? So I think that all of those things come to mind. And the other thing I'll just sort of end with is, I think sometimes it's easy to forget that if you have 7% inflation, that means that whatever number you're working with doubles every 10 years. So when we think of timelines from the 90s to the 2000s, or even in the more short term from 2016 to 2026, if inflation is close to 7%, that means the budget doubles. Now, I don't think actual inflation has actually been 7%, but if you look at what it actually takes to live in Southern California, when you look at the cost of homes, when you look at the cost of rent, when you look at the cost of education and healthcare, in other words, the things that people buy other than butter and gas, those numbers are much closer to 7%. And that's what the employees of the city have to pay to live close enough to actually work here, right? And basically, we are falling behind. We are not keeping up. We are falling behind. And so those are the kinds of things that concern me. And you know, I think that the last thing I'll just say is, when I ran for this position, one of the things I talked about was customer service. And I don't think our goal is or should be to run a city that is barely scraping by and that is not meeting the needs of the residents and really the expectations of the residents. And so I think that when I see this, I see a city that's barely scraping by. And that's not what I grew up with. It's not what I want for myself, and it's not what I want for my children.
David?
First of all, I applaud you for the presentation, Michael, and I think it's everything that Derek just alluded to, I would support as well. But the overriding message to me in this presentation is what the three of us that came on the council 6, 7, 8, whatever number of years ago, were talking about is long-range planning. We have not looked into the future realistically to look at all of the challenges this community is facing. And what we really need to put a high degree of focus on, and our residents need to understand that we have so many unmet needs, or some needs that may be nice to have, but we need to get a complete inventory. We need a long-range plan, whether it be from an operational staffing perspective and contract perspective, and what are we going to do for weed mitigation or for tree trimming, all the way through to how are we going to cash fund all these deferred maintenance issues that our community is facing. So if there's a message that I would reinforce to our community, is we need to take off the blinders, we need to think forward, and we have to be realistic about what it is to maintain this community. And it's not going to be penny pinching of any way, shape, or form, because every time we turn around, there's a new surprise. And we don't have any monies tucked away for these surprises or risks that the community is facing. And that concerns me as a financial professional. This is exactly how you would not run a corporation. So I thoroughly want to see this council and our staff put as much focus and energy toward long-range planning, not this year, not next year, but 4 or 5 years down the road, and how does that domino back to today, and how are we going to be prepared for that situation 4 or 5 years from hence? Thank you.
Thanks. Greg?
Thank you. Again, thank you for the presentation. I'll start off with a comment that Derek led with, which is the staffing. And I want to thank Carrie specifically for what I envision, I think the council and everyone envisions. We're in a turnaround right now at the city. Derek's comments are right on. But hiring and staffing and leading and motivating the staff to date, Chief Halinga, you've done the same thing with your staff. That's important. Leadership's important. So in terms of the council, I mentioned this before, I believe that we're the right team, the right council at this moment. If we solve the revenue problem, I guarantee you that we will do everything we can to spend dollars as efficiently as possible. If we don't solve the revenue problem, I think
we're really going to spend it as efficiently as possible.
We're going to, we'll have to lead through that issue, whatever that may look like. But from a council perspective, from a leadership, a collaboration perspective, I think we're the right team right now to handle the issue one way or the other. And with that, I think, again, giving Kerry the credit for what he's been doing up till date to this moment, and Luke as well, continuing that, and when we have some revenue, hopefully we can build the staff back up to an appropriate level, whatever that may be. So I won't get into all the numbers. The math has to math, as Michael mentioned earlier. I'm thrilled that our audit is behind us and that is checked off, and we're proving that we can manage, at least the finances as we move forward. We need to be united with the residents as much as we possibly can. So it's a three-legged stool. It's the council, the staff, and the residents. We've listened. We have an extremely talented group of residents that are offering whatever they can do to help us. Hopefully they'll help us or help with the revenue issue. We'll see what happens at that point. But you have my commitment, and I'm going to speak for the council, that we will work collaboratively and professionally to get through this.
Good. Well, everybody hit all the good points. So thanks, Michael, for doing the presentation. And actually, it was great. And I actually appreciate that you kind of gave it a more serious tone, that men's breakfast club can sometimes be a frenzied setting. So I'm glad you kind of.
Wait a minute.
Oh, you thought I was going to repeat that here?
So I was like, oh, okay, good. I'm glad. It just allows you to kind of a lot of time, and also a lot of times it's just super fast, and so I appreciate that you kind of slowed it down a little bit. I'm not going to repeat what everyone else has said because, of course, I'm in agreement with everybody's comments. These slides are, basically the same information that we have been presenting to the community over the past year, over and over and over again. But the more you tell the story, the more residents hear it, and the more they understand what's happening, and the better for all of us. I mean, that's how probably most people learn anything. You just hear it over and over and repeat, and then, the light bulbs go on a little bit every step of the way. And so I think that's where we are, and I think that's a great presentation, and thanks for doing it. And
Sure.
Yeah, go team.
Okay, public comment? Ready? Who wants to go first, John or Christine? Take John. You gave it to us first.
Yes, that's fine. Let's start speaking. Say what I think. Good evening. My name is Sean Williams. I live in Montana. And I have a few comments about the deficit tonight. I will interject to say I have considerable opinions about the mayor's presentation, but I don't have time for it, and I haven't prepared to respond, but I will prepare a response in due course. This month, the city put out a newsletter. I think you talked about it. It's a very nice newsletter, and I had a chart that I thought was quite interesting. But the chart really didn't have a lot of background, so I'm going to talk about that. The top chart, I mean, is at the bottom, the expenditures versus revenues. Pick some of the data included in the financial forecast spreadsheet that the city council reviewed and discussed on June 3rd, June 17th, and July 3rd last year. The same spreadsheet included a $17.5 million plus escalation parcel tax. The purpose of the graph is to show the forecast city deficit between now and 2035. That deficit is about $8.5 million plus escalation. That's what it says in the chart. I'm not saying that's correct necessarily. Accordingly, a tax of $8.5 million plus escalation would preserve the status quo. Michael talked a lot about the status quo and its deficiencies, but the status quo has been at least satisfactory for quite some time now. So with the tax, we would preserve this existing public safety and fire services. They wouldn't go away. So why did the city council pencil in a $17.5 million parcel tax? Well, it covers other stuff, a lot of important stuff, and maybe some not so important. And it's, you never let a good crisis go to waste. You guys put everything together in one big, beautiful, whatever.
Bill?
Even $17.5 million isn't the end of the story. Council members have said that the city hall renovation, remediation, replacement is not included. That will be another tax. So my suggestion is maybe we could use idle time to make a plan that includes everything. I mean, you've had 7 years, and I say there's no plan. I know Councilmember Lazara disagrees with me. We have to break the loop that connects, we are unable to plan without knowing our budget, and we are unable to obtain funding without a plan.
Time.
So let's walk before we run. Solve the immediate small problem first to avoid a crisis, and use the resulting time to solve the big problems and agree on priorities and additional taxes.
Thank you. Christine Fine?
Thank you. First, I do want to respect you on your slide, and you all had agreed with what Derek had said. The slide read, staffing is the backbone of service. Personally, I believe fiscal responsibility provides the backbone of service. Now, to go on with what I'm here for, is to Mayor and council members. The information I'm providing today can also be found in tonight's agenda under open comments for reference for anyone listening. I want to share with you concerns many in the community have on the proposed parcel tax you have unanimously endorsed. This is the largest city parcel tax in California just to maintain existing services. It makes no sense that the cost of $15 million in safety city services suddenly more than double, and no justification is being offered. Worse, there are no services listed in the tax, so there's no commitment to residents as to what we will get for all that money. There is no commitment to a 3-minute response time, no requirement for 2 concurrent patrols 24/7, nothing. Just says money will be spent on safety and lists some potential options. If I was to hire a landscaper to do projects in my home, I would require an agreement of exactly what they will plant and where before I agree to pay. This tax is not a fair agreement. It is a blank check without any commitment or accountability. We need open communication to ensure our tax dollars go to residents' priorities, because this tax excludes infrastructure and pension funding, which guarantees that you will be back for more taxes, because you told us in 2 town halls that you need essential funding for both. So when will residents be told the whole picture? Many residents were deceived into thinking this is just an extension of Measure E, when in fact every word of Measure E is replaced by this initiative tax proposal, and the cost more than tripled. This is a replacement, not an extension. Our residents deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go.
Just a request for staff, could we, I think it caught her, but I'm not sure the microphone is entirely catching everything for everyone at home. I'm not sure, so maybe we could check that. Obviously, we heard it, and I think both speakers projected, so they probably could hear it, but yeah, thank you. I don't think, well, it was on, or it is on? It was not on. I'll take them again if you want to do it.
I have a copy of mine, we can just take that and put it in the...
Let her rip, go.
Actually, both of yours are
Yeah.
on the
On the
agenda.
public agenda.
Both of yours are printed on the.
Pretty
I
close
think
to
you
what
should-
they said.
I think it's her.
Do you want this, do you want me to say it again?
I would like to hear that you put public service.
So if you want to do it, then you both need to, and I'm more than comfortable having you do it. Sure.
Christine wants to, I'll do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
See how fast I can talk again.
You don't have to. You came in under time.
So just for any residents that tuned in after the fact, I don't think we caught the audio. Now we're good. So rewind a bit. Go.
Okay, go.
There you go.
All right, now I'll reposition myself here. You can start the clock over.
I thought I was just losing my hearing. Now I'm glad I'm not.
I have 5 seconds more. Back to what I was saying about the slide up here first during the city, state of the city. The slide says staffing is the backbone of service, but I feel, however, that fiscal responsibility provides the backbone of service. You know, to what I'm came here to say. The information I'm providing today can also be found in tonight's agenda under the open comments for reference for anyone listening. I want to share with you the concerns many in the community have on the proposed parcel tax that you have unanimously endorsed. This is the largest city parcel tax in California just to maintain existing services. It makes no sense that the cost of $15 million in safety city services suddenly more than doubled, and no justification is being offered. Worse, there are no services listed in the tax, so there is no commitment to residents as to what we will get for all that money. There is no 3-minute commitment response time, no requirement for 2 concurrent patrols, 24/7, nothing. It just says money will be spent on safety and lists some potential options. If I was to hire a landscaper to do a project at my house, I would require an agreement of exactly what they will plant and where before I agree to pay. This tax is not a fair agreement. It's a blank check without any commitment or accountability. We need open communication to ensure our tax dollars go to residents' priorities, because this tax excludes infrastructure and pension funding, which guarantees that you will be back for more taxes, because you told us in 2 town halls that you need essential funding for both. So when will residents be told the whole picture? Many residents were deceived into thinking this is just an extension of Measure E, when in fact every word, just about, of Measure E is replaced by this initiative tax proposal. And the cost more than tripled. This is a replacement, not an extension. Our residents deserve better. Thank you.
Thanks for doing it again. Mr. Williams.
Good evening. My name's John. Is this on?
Let me put it up a little bit higher, Mr. Williams.
Is this better? Oh, it's very
I think
directional.
so, yeah.
Good evening. My name's John Williams. I live in Monte Malaga. And tonight I'd like to discuss the city deficit. I have to be brief, but the agenda has a link to a 5-page essay with details. This month, the city published community newsletter had a page discussing the Measure E expiration. It has pie charts of the sources and uses of the budget and a graph titled Expenses Outpacing Revenues. The graph is quite interesting, but it relies on a myriad of assumptions. The graph depicts some of the data included in a financial forecast spreadsheet presented and discussed by the City Council at meetings on June 3rd, June 17, and July 1st last year. This same spreadsheet included a $17.5 million plus escalation parcel tax. The purpose of the graph is to show the forecast city deficit between now and 2035. That deficit is about $8.5 million to start, plus escalation. Accordingly, a tax of $8.5 million would preserve the status quo. Existing public safety and fire services would be maintained. So why did the city pencil in a $17.5 million parcel tax? Well, the additional funding covers other things. Never let a good crisis go to waste. However, even $17.5 million is not the end of the story. There's another tax on the horizon for City Hall repairs or replacement. Maybe we could take the current idle time before the measure goes to a vote in June to make a plan that includes everything. We have to break the loop that connects we are unable to plan without knowing our budget, and we are unable to obtain funding without a plan. That goes nowhere. So let's walk before we run. Solve the immediate small problem first to avoid a crisis, and use the resulting time to solve the big problems and agree on priorities and additional taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we've covered the public speakers on that one. One more? Do you have a card? Or we know who you are. You want to give me a blank one? Nope. Same agenda item, no? Yes. I think,
Thank you. Really appreciate your input. We need that insight. Good evening, Mayor and council members. For some of you, you may know I'm the direct neighbor here. For others, I'll just say that I live right next door in the Parkland area or adjacent to it, here in Palos Verdes Estates. Land intentionally designed by Frederick Law Olmsted Jr. to function as a preserved, interconnected habitat. These fire trails are not empty utility corridors. They are living ecosystems, shared every day by wildlife, residents, children, and pets. This land is special because it was meant to be stewarded with care, not managed like a roadside. Decisions here carry consequences beyond what we can immediately see. That's why I'm deeply concerned by the decision to resume chemical spraying with little to no notice to residents. Proper legal notice was not provided by the contractor in the past. I've come to 2 meetings to say that. That was feedback from young families in the community at 2 different locations. And many people were not given the opportunity. So when proper notice is not provided by the contractor, many people are not given the opportunity to protect their animals, avoid treated areas, or even understand what was being applied. That is a breakdown in transparency and trust. After spraying occurred last year, I found dead squirrels and rats in my yard showing signs of consistent neurological distress. I think Mr. Carey will remember I brought those animals to the city hall. Shortly thereafter, my 7-year-old golden retriever, previously very healthy, became seriously ill and later diagnosed with oral melanoma. I want to be clear, I'm not here to claim certain or assigned blame. My dog has thankfully recovered after many months and treatment and 2 surgeries.
could you please wrap up?
Once toxic substances are introduced into the ecosystem, none of us can control where they travel through soil, water, plants, and the food chain. This is not a question of being anti-maintenance or anti-safety. It's about whether this city chooses chemical solutions by default in sensitive habitats, without a wildlife plan, without full notice, and without community consent. I'm asking the council, please, to pause spraying again and direct staff, and let's work together for a wildlife-sensitive vegetation management plan.
Thank you.
Thank you for the extra time.
Bob Stearns, please.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, City staff, and residents. My name is Bob Stearns. I'm the Palos Verdes Estates Neighborhood Watch Area Coordinator for Monte Malaga with an update. We are off and running in 2026 with our first street meet this Thursday at 1512 Addison Road. That's over by the high school. It starts at 4 p.m. Anyone is welcome to attend, even if you're not a Neighborhood Watch member or didn't receive an invitation. Neighborhood Watch is proud to partner with our PVE Police Department in organizing street meets. A street meet is an informal gathering of neighbors to meet members of the police department and to get update on what's going on in your neighborhood with regard to crime, and get tips for making your property and neighborhood safer. Street meets are typically held in a driveway, front yard, sports court, or cul-de-sac. They generally last about an hour. If you want a street meet on your block, contact us at pvenwboard@gmail.com. We do all of the work and make it easy for you to have an event. Mail theft and check fraud continue to be one of the most common crimes in the South Bay. Try to mail letters inside a post office. It is recommended not to use U.S. postal mailboxes or clip mail to your mailbox or front door. Use a gel pen or a pen that resists check washing if you're writing checks. For tips and information, consider attending the PV Library Series sponsored by Malaga Bank. They provide useful and reliable information on how best to protect yourself from these mail theft and fraud crimes. To find a link to the Malaga Bank Educational Series and other helpful tips, visit our website, pvenw.org. Neighborhood Watch will be starting its annual membership drive in a few days. Look for our personal letter and update on Neighborhood Watch activities. We encourage you to talk to your neighbors to make sure they are all members of Neighborhood Watch. Lastly, remember that we are all responsible for keeping our community safe. If you see something suspicious, say something. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other public comment? Okay. On to the consent agenda, items 1 through 9. Those are approval of warrants, City Council meeting actions, number 3, Planning Commission meeting actions, Traffic Safety Committee action minutes, Parkland Committee meeting actions, approval of the Fifth Amendment and restated JPA agreement for the South Bay Cities Council of Governments, continuing the emergency storm drain repair and erosion control work at 4425 Lucera Circle and the City Boundary Trail. Number 8, consider approving the unclaimed property policy, and number 9, a resolution establishing the accounting technician classification, job description, and pay range within the Public Service Association employee group, and subsequent resolution 04, amending the FY 25-26 salary schedule. Do we have any council members that wish to pull any of those and/or questions? Okay, hearing none. Do we have any public comments on any items numbers 1 through 9? Ms. Ramirez? Oh.
Yes, thank you.
Come on up. Which item are you coming up for?
I'm not certain. I'll rely on you to apply it. Are one of these for the approval of
No.
the herbicide?
No.
From the last, isn't that, I believe, on the agenda to approve?
We satisfied that at the last meeting.
Yes, I thought the
Yeah.
agenda this time also said to confirm that. So not?
Nope.
No. And just for the record, we actually reduced herbicide usage in this city by probably 90%. Go and watch the last meeting. It was a reduction to, I don't want to say nothing, but it is a very dramatic reduction.
It's still so clearly so close.
Right.
Yeah.
It's from the stairwell all the way the main fire trail.
Anyway, unfortunately, that is not on the consent agenda.
Thank you for saying so.
Motion to approve the consent agenda, items 1 through 9.
I'll second.
So a motion, Councilmember Lozzi, second, Mayor Pro Tem Lazaro. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. On to new business, item number 10, comprehensive wildfire risk mitigation strategy. May we have a staff report, please?
Luke plug stuff in, please. Thank you. This is an item that was requested by Mayor Pro Tem. I think he was Councilmember.
Still so clearly, so
Mic on?
close.
Okay.
It's from the stairwell all the way to the main fire trail.
Anyway, unfortunately, that is not on the consent agenda.
Thank you for saying.
Well, now we know what we sound like.
Okay. Anyways, this is an item requested by
I'll second.
then Councilmember Lazaro, and put on the future agenda item list. I'm going to turn this over to Chief Halinga. There are several people in the room that can assist if there's questions or discussion. LA County Assistant Chief?
That's correct.
Brian Kane, who serves our region, is here. Myself is available, as well as our Public Works Director, Oscar. So, you got everything there set up there, Chief?
Rough start. Am I on now? Yes.
All right,
Okay.
you're up.
Okay, thank you very much, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor Kemp's and council members and members of the public. Very happy to be here tonight to present on a comprehensive wildlife risk mitigation strategy. Thank you, Chief Kane, for being here. Most of this has to do with fire-related services. I'm happy to present it on behalf of the police department, as we do intermix a lot on that effort. But as City Manager Coleman said, Mayor Pro Tem Lazar requested this at a prior staff meeting, and the purpose of this agenda item is to support a constructive discussion between the City Council and the community regarding existing and potential options to enhance wildfire safety efforts. So there's nowhere in this presentation or staff report are we requesting to modify the city budget or make any new budget allocations for this agenda item. The document outlines several existing and proposed efforts drawn from residents, from staff, and from prior council meetings, all with the effort to reduce the risk of wildfire in PVE. So city staff is seeking confirmation of the direction of the council and to evaluate and report back on the items proposed, and implementation of items with no new cost will continue as resources allow. So this is really bifurcated into two separate strategies or types of strategies. The first on the left there you'll see is the fire prevention strategies, and then on the right is fire response strategies, and there's 5 on the left and 6 on the right. I won't read them all off, but as we go through the presentation, we'll discuss each of these. And I told Chief Kane before, but if you want to jump in at any point, or if I misspeak, feel free to jump in or correct me. So the first, one of the first categories is the fire response, and we're discussing the Pano AI cameras. So these are cameras located throughout the peninsula, and there's even one in Torrance. So there's 4 on the image. You'll see that all the cameras are facing east. That's just the icon that we chose, but the cameras are essentially 360 degrees, and they automatically detect smoke, and they send the alerts to the Palos Verdes Estates Police Dispatch Center, who will evaluate the alert and determine which resources need to be sent. This has been ongoing for some time. We just added the 4th camera. This is all funded through a grant. Rancho Palos Verdes headed it up in conjunction with the 3 other cities on the peninsula. So one of the things that we will constantly evaluate with this program is how adequate it's working, and if there is a need to if there's a need to provide additional cameras. There actually was a structure fire in Torrance this morning. I was driving in Torrance and I saw the black smoke rising, and within a few minutes I looked down at my phone and I even got the Pano AI alert. They have worked on the peninsula. There's been a number of fires. Usually people call us first. People are a little quicker to call. A big help on these cameras is if it's nighttime and a fire comes up and there's nobody around looking at it or seeing it, these cameras will alert first responders quickly. The next strategy towards fire prevention is a real-time response center. So the image on the screen is a new response center that the Torrance Police Department just got started a little while ago. What this is it's really a fusion. It's a very high-tech dispatch center where they're not receiving the 911 calls, but they're looking at a fusion of cameras whether it be, police department-owned cameras, the Pano AI, the ALPR alerts, even if a business decides to allow the police department to see their feeds, we can fuse all of that information together in one center and have someone providing real-time information for this. So this would be not just for fire safety, but it'd be helpful for crime responses. Some of the very high-tech ones have drone operators inside of these real-time response centers, and they're either patrolling with drones or using a drone as a first responder, meaning an incident happens and somebody inside the center is launching a drone from a roof, and they're getting on scene very quickly and able to see what's going on. So the cost is under evaluation, but one thing that we would definitely need for this is more people. So the concept for that is to, well, let me back up a little bit. Our police service officers are on duty 24/7. Currently, they work dispatch and jail as their primary function. The minimum staffing level for the on-duty service officer is 1, and then if there is somebody in custody, it's an additional service officer. So in theory, the second service officer on duty could act as, somebody working this real-time response center. And if we were to go with that theory, we would have to have the dispatch center staffed 24/7. And in order to get to that number, we estimated that we would need an additional 5 service officers to be in there 24/7. So right now we have 1 dispatcher always here 24/7. Sometimes we have 2. Sometimes it depends on if we have people in custody or jail. But if we went to this real-time crime center or response center, we would need more people so that center's staffed with a minimum of 2 24/7. Any questions on that? Or we want to do questions at the end, maybe?
Why don't we wait till the end? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, the next fire prevention is a red flag action day plan. So a red flag day, actually, Chief, would you mind describing red flag days and how you get that information and share it with us a little bit?
So red flag, as we hear it on the news. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. Assistant Chief Brian Kane, Los Angeles County Fire Department. So a red flag is weather conditions that meet a threshold to where we increase staffing and there's an increased wildfire risk. Typically, it's winds in excess of 15 miles an hour. It's humidities at less than 10%. And then we also take a reading of live and dead fuel moistures. Put all those numbers together, we create an average of fire risk for that particular day as it relates to all those numericals, and we come up with red flag conditions. Red flag conditions mean there is a heightened risk of wildfire. Now understand that doesn't mean there is going to be a wildfire, because most, or not, if not all, wildfires, especially in Southern California, as we don't have a lot of lightning, are instigated by some kind of a human intervention, whether it's accidental or intentional. But red flag definitely does mean a heightened fire risk.
Thank you so much. So, what is the city, what can we do when we have a red flag warning day, essentially? So, one of the things that's under development is develop new ordinances. In November, I did a presentation about some fire safety ordinances that the city could enact. And I know that's an up-and-coming agenda item, which would revise some of our municipal codes. It could give some authority during a red flag day for the city manager to shut down certain trail areas to reduce that possibility of a human, either accidental or intentional act, which starts one of these wildfires. We could do some things as deploying drones to check those areas and having more volunteers hike in those areas to check for people. So that is one idea. Kind of along those same lines is the idea of adding to our Parkland Ranger program. So expanding that program and increasing the number of patrols that we have and having a focus on those red flag days or any other days where that could be at risk.
I'll go back.
Sure.
So we have a new oh, you just mean our normal, you mean Kristen?
Yes.
Oh, I was like, what, we hired a new coordinator?
No, she was hired in May, but
sorry,
yeah,
I
she
thought you meant
oversees
just
that.
for that program.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Sorry.
So the next item is to to help with fire prevention is parkland weed abatement. You know, this is a constant item before the city council, and it's just something that we should always pay attention to. I don't know if you wanted to jump in on this one.
Sure. I mean, we covered this at our last meeting, but, you know, we're always looking at better, smarter, more cost-efficient ways to handle our weed abatement requirements and make the community a little bit more, create defensible space. We are, I think, as early as next week, opening bids. We put out for bid our weed abatement. We put out two RFPs, one's for primarily using goats to do our weed abatement, and then there is a hand crew component for areas that even the goats can't get to. So we're very excited about this. We know it will cover much more area that we've been covering, and hopefully at a better cost. So that's coming.
Okay, this is my favorite slide. I mean, look at that truck. All right, that truck is newly stationed here at Palos Verdes Estates. It's downstairs right now. So this is a wildland brush unit type 3.
That's correct.
So it is assigned to the peninsula, but we're lucky to have it here in Palos Verdes Estates. It is a type 3 engine specifically designed for off-road capability. It can access areas where the normal fire trucks cannot. It makes it a critical resource if we do have a brush fire. It's equipped with a specialized pump that can project the water significantly further than the traditional fire engine pumps, enhancing the operational effectiveness, and especially when you have to go through rugged terrain or during extended hose lay operations. On high fire risk days, including the red flag conditions described by Chief Kane, this Type 3 engine is placed into active service as the primary engine at Station 2 due to these superior capabilities. So during these periods, Station 2's standard engine is moved to their kind of backup spot, and then this one comes into play, and you would see it rolling around, sort of responding to normal calls, if I have that correct.
Yes, that's correct. So I would also like to add, so this is new to the peninsula. This is an extremely integral piece of firefighting equipment as it relates to wildland fires. This is the CAL FIRE spec, so it's a tried and true piece of equipment. We took their direct spec and ordered our own fleet of these. So it's got extreme off-road capabilities, so we don't have to lay our hose lines from pavement or a hard road surface with our other Type 1 types of pieces of equipment. We can take this right to the heel, what we call the heel or the origin of the fire, and begin our hose lays from there. As I said, the department has a fleet of these now, so we are very limited on where we can house these pieces of equipment, but also understand that just down the hill in the city of Lawndale, we have another one of these, and the reason it is placed in Lawndale is for quick response to the Palos Verdes Peninsula. So just because it's not stationed here doesn't mean it's not going to come here, and it's housed there because they have the room for it, they have the crew that can cross-staff it, and it will be on alert on those red flags days and cross-staffed in the city of Lawndale for response to the peninsula.
All right, outstanding, thank you. Another fire response strategy is the new helo pods that have been recently deployed on the peninsula. There's one near the Rancho Palos Verdes City Hall, and then there was another one recently installed in Rolling Hills Estates. So that is the current status. We're always evaluating things and working with the County Fire and Cal Water to determine if more helo pods in the area would be beneficial. There is a cost to that. Sometimes there's grants, and I believe Rancho Palos Verdes work closely with Cal Water on that. Another fire response strategy is a new water storage tank. This is something that staff and I believe council members have been working with Cal Water on. It would provide another source of water for helicopters to, this is not for that. This is to increase water flow, if I have that correct. Yeah. Again, fire department's not my expertise, but so we're working with Cal Water to make sure that we have the adequate water supplies. This is an exciting one that I've been working on the last couple of weeks, in particular with the Palos Verdes Estates Foundation. it was actually Kerry's idea that stemmed from his experience in the Woolsey fire to equip the police officers with fire brush jackets and Nomex like fireproof or I don't know, it's not fireproof, but Nomex hoods.
Fire resistant.
Fire resistant hoods to protect our officers, because most likely we'll be there first and we will be knocking on doors and we'll be exposed to the brush fires and the smoke. So these are essentially backpacks or kits that contain a lot of protective gear. I believe that we haven't finalized the quote, but the quote's around the $30,000 range, and the Palos Verdes Estates Foundation is planning on donating those to the police department. So, and with that, we're always evaluating ongoing training. If we could potentially increase the training opportunities for our officers so that they understand how to respond to these and maybe understand fire science a little better to protect themselves. And on the second to last slide here, we're discussing strengthening our DDP program. Our DDP stands for Disaster District Program, and this is a program in which we have supplies at different locations, I think at all 5 school locations, and we have a lot of supplies for disasters. So there has been, due to some staff turnover, we need to replenish those supplies and maybe even increase the amount of supplies we have in there regarding the wildfire risk. And that is something that is an ongoing evaluation. And for our last slide here, we explored the option of trying to get jet fuel at the Torrance Airport. And as we explored that, we were able to determine that Torrance Airport is actually not going to be suitable, but the Long Beach Airport has sufficient resources. This is so that our LA County Fire helicopters can refuel quickly and close by the peninsula in case there was a wildfire. And that concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions or anything you'd like.
Council questions?
I'll start off if that's okay. Thank you for the presentation and welcome, Chief Kane. Appreciate it. In terms of the red flag warning, are you coordinating with the PVPUSD and the schools that are in our area, and are they involved in the planning for that?
Typically, we don't know.
Why?
Why does the police? Why does the police department not do that? Good question.
Let me help you out, Chief.
Thanks.
I think, I don't know, Councilmember Quinn, when you mean by coordinating, I know that when a red flag day is called, and I'll ask Chief Kane a question in a minute, he might not know the answer, but certain people in the city get an alert or warning or notification from the LA County Fire, essentially. There's some other groups that'll let us know that this is coming. Do you know if the school district is on that distribution list?
Not that I'm aware of, and that comes from the National Weather Service.
Okay, so to answer your question, that's a great point. I will tell you that we have made a habit, Chief Ling and I, on those days, just to come together, talk about things. We've also, not fire related, but I will tell you that in the, over almost 2 years now that I've been here, time flies, Luke and I and our superintendent of school have really worked on a communication protocol. It hasn't been fire related, but it's been other incidents that could be school related. I will tell you that when we kind of first all started here, there was no communication protocol, and it was something that we really insisted on and had some bumps along the road, but I think we're in a good spot now. If I understand your question, it's more of a suggestion, and let's make sure that we are all communicating with the superintendent of schools.
Yeah, and as part of the planning, not when it's happening, but in advance. But to follow up with that, one suggestion might be that if there is a red fire or a red flag issue in our community, it might be helpful if the children were remote that day and that all the cars and traffic don't come into our community or into the communities where there might be a fire. I don't know if that can happen, but that's just one idea. If it if it erupts, then we have to deal with evacuations and all the other things. So less is more in that situation. I'll leave it to the experts, but just a comment. In terms of parkland rangers, you mentioned additional staff for that. What opportunity is there for volunteers to be trained and be part of that, and maybe even take over the whole role, and rather than having to hire full-time employees?
Yeah, our volunteers are wonderful, and we actually do have one volunteer in particular that does a lot of the coordination right now. Part of the concerns we would have with that is reliability. You know, sometimes our volunteers take extended, vacations, or they have other issues where they don't report in, and there's not as much accountability that we can really hold them to. We're thankful when they show up, and like I said, one in particular has been very consistent within the last couple of years. But we can't always depend on having that one person who decides to go well above and beyond, and having a coordinator. We previously had a part-time coordinator that worked really well and really allowed our emergency preparedness coordinator to focus more on the bigger picture, higher priority items. And the part-time coordinator was able to coordinate the schedules, keep them engaged, keep the command staff apprised of equipment needs, or scheduling problems, or even, occasionally a work-related injury if they tripped on a trail or things along those lines. So that's primarily what it helps with.
And just to provide some clarity, the parkland rangers themselves are volunteers. I just think that the concept that we're discussing today is just to breathe some more life into that, figure out ways. These are just areas that we're talking about. We wanted to kind of bring them all into the same place. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think we have about 5 parkland rangers. So the idea would be to expand that so that we have more available. So if there is a red flag day, we're not dependent on the 2 that are in town during that 2 or 3 day period, but we have a good number of volunteers.
Okay.
And Chief, I don't know if you're done, Craig, or...
No, I've got a couple more.
Oh, okay, all right.
So I think we'll park this for a later date, but I do want to just mention it, that CAL FIRE has changed the high risk, or very high risk severity zones, and 1/3 of our city now is in the high risk area, and the rest of it is in a lesser area, moderate or whatever. And I want to make sure that we've got a plan in place for both not only parkland weed abatement, but for residential weed abatement, and looking and making sure that the residents are doing what they need to do to keep the residents safe. But we can talk about that later. My next question is, for those that may not know where Station 2 is and the numbers that are in our community, could you just give us a quick update on those?
The numbers as it relates to...
Where they're located. So Fire Station 2?
Fire Station 2 is directly downstairs.
And the one at the top of the hill?
So there's 5 stations within the peninsula. So we have Fire Station 106, which is by the mall. We have Fire Station 2, which is downstairs.
Okay.
We have Fire Station 53, which is on the other side of the hill, on the coast side, near the slide area. And we have Fire Station 83, which is on kind of the San Pedro side of the Rancho Palos Verdes area. And just at the base of the hill, we have Fire Station 6. So those are the respective fire stations here.
In terms of the helipads, I didn't hear any mention of the Palos Verdes Golf Course extra. I don't know if we're putting in a water source there. Where will that go, and what will that be used for?
So
That's the Cal Water one, then?
yeah, so that's the Cal Water tank that we mentioned. This is a project that's been in sort of the planning phase, I would guess you would say, for a couple of years now.
Or more.
More.
More?
Maybe 6.
Well, I go to 2 years, and so it's 6 over 2. We've had several on-site meetings. At this point, we have one final on-site meeting, I think, scheduled for in 2 weeks from now, and then Cal Water is going to be working on draft easement documents. Those easement documents will go to Trevor. Trevor will review those, and then we plan to bring that to the City Council for approval of the easements to allow them to build, which I believe is a 750,000 gallon new additional water tank. There's an additional 1 million gallon water tank right next to the golf course at Via Campesina. This will be a second one, and it's really about redundancy and providing more water stored on site.
Good to hear. Thank you. That's all I have.
Can I ask you a question? I'm actually the owner of the company that makes the helipod, so if there's any questions, I can provide a lot of input to that, as well as what other cities and counties and states are doing. So I did put myself in public comments until this came along, so I don't know how to introduce that.
Consider it introduced.
Make sure I get a card. Okay.
Victoria?
Oh, were you finished? Oh, so sorry. Okay, thanks for the presentation. I'm just going to flip through kind of notes I made to myself. So I feel, because you actually, I like the way you had the slide sort of fire prevention and then fire response. And I thought that was helpful to divide things that way. So I don't know if we're kind of, just talking about each thing, but here were my comments was, the Pano AI detector, I think, they kind of do their job. And they, in fact, they picked up, they're supposed to have a however many couple mile radius. They picked up smoke from the Palisades fire. So they are far reaching, and I think they do their job. The Red Flag Day action plan. That just seems like a good idea, smart, seems like kind of common sense. I think that, RPV has something similar, and I think they did close the trails on those high-risk days, the low humidity and high wind days. Of course, the thing that comes to mind is enforceability. I guess you're kind of talking about drones going, looking to see if people are all, I don't know, being knuckleheads on the trails when it's a high-risk day. Or maybe that's the Parkland Range, maybe that's sort of, that leverages to the Parkland Rangers maybe. So, enforceability or monitoring is always a tricky thing. And I think I'm going to ask this question because I think the city manager knows the answer, or maybe Chief, maybe you know maybe the Chief knows the answer. So let's say in the last year, how many red flag days have we had in Palos Verdes Estates?
I do remember.
Hey, what's the number?
We just had this discussion. It's 14.
14?
On the peninsula.
In a year. Yeah, on the peninsula in a year. Okay, so,
And is that statistically high or average?
Well, I would say in the area, it's on the higher side.
Yeah.
And understand, too, that some of those red flag days are multiple days. So a red flag event could span 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. Okay, so 14 instances, not necessarily days. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so it's not 360. Okay, but still, that to me, and, maybe to Craig's point as well about, well, do we coordinate with the school district? My initial thought when you made that comment, I was like, well, no, because we protect them. We would go to them and say, hey, I don't know what, no cigarettes behind the library. I don't know, But it does seem, because I certainly don't recall getting 14 notifications. I'm on all the little thingies. I certainly don't recall getting 14 notifications saying, hey, FYI, red flag risk conditions are out there. Be sure you're careful, So it seems like more public communication, maybe. How are people, well, I know you, I guess I would say you should never flick your cigarette into the parklands, but not all people believe that. So there you go. Anyway, so that one seems like kind of common sense. Parkland Rangers, I think there are actually a lot of people, a lot of residents that hike our trails all the time, and I think would be very interested in helping. I have an extremely good friend who made the mistake recently of saying, hey, I hike the trails every weekend. Is there anything I could do to help to, I love the trails. I like to keep them safe. I know they're back there. They're remote. Like, is there anything I can do to help? And my husband, of course, said, oh, you should have never said that out loud to her. So, but I think there's lots of people like that out there. So I think we do need to. And I think that we can have, I agree that you kind of need an employee to really be responsible for these programs because volunteers are just that. And they're not going to cancel their big travel plans because they're supposed to be hiking the trails that day, right? So, but I do think, like you mentioned, you kind of have one. I think we could have a handful of, I don't know, volunteer supervisor level. I know it's people who are maybe you got 5 supervisors and they each have sort of 5 people under them that they, that they kind of deploy as needed. I don't know, something. It seems like we could do more there and we should do more there. And I know one person who'd be really good. And he's probably not listening, but he's in. The helipads, I think the helipads, the 2 seem fine. I mean, obviously you're monitoring other locations. That to me is, I think 2 are fine, and continue to monitor the new Cal water tank. It's so interesting when they came. I mean, it probably was like 5 years ago, right, you guys? I mean, it was a long time ago.
It's 5 or 6.
And they came and they stood and they said, just so you know, we're building a new water tank. And we all went, oh, really? So we got into a little discussion and then they went off, okay. But what's so interesting is now, when you've had a big disaster like Palisades and the Eaton fire, where there were, whatever the cause, where there were definitely, kind of being able to pump the water fast enough. What's that word? Sorry. Water pressure. Thank you, water pressure. But that actually, those tanks are potable water, so they're for drinking. But they do move move water through the hydrants, and they do increase water pressure. Thank you. So I think that makes all the sense in the world. I think at the time everyone thought, well, we have a 1 million gallon tank back there. Why do we need another 1 million gallon tank? But now we know why we need another 1 million. So I think that'll work itself out. You want to be respectful of the neighbors back there, but yeah, I think that'll get itself worked out. I think the response, I'll just kind of, probably last thought, the response center was, it's interesting, but to me, overkill for a city like Palos Verdes Estates, maybe something to consider for the future. I think it's interesting, the Torrance picture, kind of a fancy command center. Even the chief in his presentation said, well, it's not really just for fire safety. To me, I struggled to understand how it really does translate to wildfire and parkland monitoring and safety. I think we've got these other tools. I think so. The Torrance example, I made a note to myself from the staff report that I thought City of Huntington Hermosa Beach was an interesting example, because that's a city with a ton of commercial and bars and restaurants and a constant flow of, I don't know, bar brawls or whatever they have going on over there. So that to me, I just personally, we heard several residents speak tonight. I just don't think we're in a position to go out to residents to ask them to pay for a fancy command center that I'm not really sure, and pay for more PD. And you said it in your report, you're going to pay for more PD, but we also have to construct the fancy new tech center. So to me, we watch and see what other people do, but that just doesn't seem, you're talking about Torrance has 150,000 people who live there. We have 13,000 people. So anyway, and so I'll just end, I'll say, I think that, this is sort of maybe a little life lesson, but it's about understanding your risks and figuring out how to manage your risk. We're never going to completely eliminate your risk. You never can completely eliminate risk from life, but I think that we've got, when I think about how far we've come in the last year of really I just like that we've got everything on a list. I'm sort of a list person. I'm like, love it. 11 things. We're like, these are the things we're going to do. It's all in one place, and we can manage that, and we can pivot and adjust as necessary and as circumstances dictate. Those are my comments.
Good.
Oh, did you want shorter ones?
Yes.
Sorry.
I thought we were on questions, but
Oh my God.
No comments.
No,
Okay,
if those were the questions.
Sorry.
I want to let Derek close, so I'm going to ask 2 questions, maybe 3. I hand it to David, and
got
Derek,
a couple,
since this is your item, then you can rip with it. I want to follow back up on an item that Craig picked up. What are the changes to inspections and/or eliminations of inspections as a result of the removal of the very high fire zone? How does that impact us, and what do other cities? How are other cities approaching that, and what should we do?
The biggest change as it relates to what's inspectable and enforceable is now only the very high. So everything under the very high, whether it's high or moderate, is not inspected and is not enforceable as it relates to defensible space and the respective zones from the Los Angeles County Fire Department.
So from the city perspective, not looking at it from the perspective of enforcement, but looking at it from the perspective of collaboration, just because, oh, sure, I'll go there. Just because some politicians decided that they were going to make some changes to make things easier didn't change anything relative to the defensible space around my house.
It did not.
So we probably need to pay attention to that and ensure that we're communicating with residents that while it's not enforceable and maybe it's helped their insurance premiums, it doesn't in any way reduce their wildfire risk or their around their home in not clearing the space around them. So
exactly,
let's not let that one go.
Just a quick jump in. I met with Chief Kane, and it was like last month, 2 months ago, and the other city managers on the peninsula. We had exactly that conversation. I don't think Chief Kane wants to say it, so I'll say it. The sort of regulations and machinations of this are changing. In fact, when we had lunch that day, there was a news article like 2 days later that was a little shift from what you were last told. So the 4 city managers on the Peninsula Hill are committed and to work with Chief Kane to make sure that we're messaging all of this the same and encouraging defensible space. So you're smiling, and I know why.
You're about to find out why. Can you go to the last slide? Yeah. I'm going to warn you, this might get spicy because I've been a helicopter pilot. I no longer fly, but I am a helicopter pilot. I'm extremely familiar with the Torrance Airport. I'm also very familiar with the traffic patterns and the number of aircraft that are at Long Beach Airport. So with that in mind, let me ask a question. Why was Torrance deemed to be unsuitable for this?
Want to say it?
Yeah, and then I'll fill in if I need to.
The city of Torrance was not open to working on this strategy.
Sounds like they need some pressure from their constituents.
Yes.
Choosing the Long Beach Airport, I'm just going to say it, choosing the Long Beach Airport to fuel jet fuel because Torrance residents and/or the Torrance City Council doesn't have the guts to collaborate with LA County to get helicopters fueled at Torrance is an absolute disaster. The traffic patterns at the Long Beach Airport has cross-section intersecting in a diagonal runway. It makes absolutely no sense to fuel LA County's fire helicopters at the Long Beach Airport. Zero. It's absolutely asinine.
Not to mention the distance.
Yeah.
It's 3 minutes. 3 or 4 minutes difference.
And the reason it's easier from the Los Angeles County Fire Department standpoint is we have a cooperating partner there being the LA County Sheriffs. So there's an LA County Sheriff heliport there to which we can use to refill our helicopters.
Totally get it.
I will also say that if there is a wildfire incident on the peninsula, we will bring our heli tender, which is a 3,000-gallon helicopter refueling apparatus, to the peninsula to help the refueling issues. But obviously 3,000 gallons in a helicopter is only going to last so long. So there we have it.
We tried it the nice way. I'm going to make a request, and hopefully I'll get 2 nods. I'd like for the city, I'm happy to sign it, to write a letter to the Torrance City Council in the public record, urging them to consider this with some reasons behind it. I'm happy to give you the pilot speak. That they need to consider partnering with Robinson Helicopter to provide Jet A fuel for those LA County helicopters, because in a situation where there's a real fire on the peninsula, that response time and that collaboration could make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time behind the scenes, Michael and I, on this one. And it was very disappointing to hear that Torrance was found the airport to be not ready, or whatever the phrase was that they used. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
They're afraid to allow
Technical
anything to have
standpoint.
jet fuel beyond the Robinson R-66 helicopters that they can provide all the access to they need to at any time that's not an emergency, because they're afraid of jets ultimately being fueled at the airport and causing noise.
Right. Which is an understandable concern.
Well, it's actually a
just-
joke,
it's-
because I'll let this go in 2 more sentences. It's a joke, because all you have to do now is fly your jet, however big it is, with a 5,400-foot runway in Torrance, fly it over to Long Beach, fuel it, then fly it in, land it at Torrance, pick up your passengers, and take back off, causing 3 times the amount of noise. The stance is ridiculous. I'm done.
Does Torrance Fire Department have their own helicopters?
No, they do not.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah.
Wait, if they needed a helicopter, wouldn't they need to call you?
They would.
Interesting.
Unbelievable.
Chief Kane, I've got just 1 or 2 questions. With the new 402 apparatus that is now been received here at Station 2, what has that done to staffing requirements? Let's start with that. Are additional staff needed to maintain that, or is it the existing staff?
So it's a 2-part answer. So red flag conditions are also rated within themselves on severity. On a mild red flag or a mild Santa Ana conditions, we're going to use a cross-staffing model to where the individuals that would normally be placed on the Type 1 or normal Engine 2 would now just be staffing Engine 402. So they'll be on the brush rig or the Type 3 for the duration of that incident or that red flag condition. Now, if the red flag condition goes up in severity, now we have the option of staffing both apparatus in the same configuration. So full staffing on the Type 1 and full staffing on the Type 3 as well for an augmented or an upstaffing.
So given that scenario, how satisfactory are the accommodations and bunk space and so forth in order to maintain that level of service?
If we were to staff both apparatus, it would be extremely tight.
It would be what?
Extremely tight at Station 2.
So that's another risk that we need to at least keep in the back of our mind.
Yes.
As far as the storage for 402, I keep referring to it as 402.
It's what it is. That's great.
That's the number.
Yeah.
It's my understanding we've got that in the back of the garage underneath where the water infiltration is.
That's correct.
Is there any kind of, if that were needed in an emergency, is that at risk of trying to get out of that garage space? Or obviously if there's any kind of earthquake issue, it could be in jeopardy, but
Yeah, the water is not going to inhibit us from leaving as it relates to that piece of equipment. Now, an earthquake is obviously something different where that could provide significant damage to where our apparatus can't leave that area. But the water shouldn't impede us from using that or putting that rig into service.
thank you. I just see it's just to me another concern that we've got with our facilities that your team is housed in and the response time for our residents.
Yes, understood.
Mayor Pro Tem, over to you, and then pause for public comment.
For Chief Halinga, my understanding is that with the current staffing that we have with the jailer slash service officers, that we frequently run into challenges where the staffing isn't optimal. And I'm trying to choose my words carefully because I think there's some kind of tactical and operational components to that, which I don't want to go into extreme detail on, but basically there are scenarios where we have not enough people to service the needs of both the dispatch function as well as maintaining a jail and safety for those people and the public and so forth and so on. Is that Is that accurate, that even sort of right now, that is something you are challenged with?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so I think, one of the things that I was sort of impressed by as I was asking questions about this presentation and in the lead up to the presentation, there were all these pieces, and I sort of realized there's a bigger story here. If you were to have more of those positions, you would kind of kill two birds with one stone. Is that a fair statement? That if you were to potentially have the staffing that would start to lead toward the ability to use drones, like many other departments around the country are considering that the current state of the art, is that true? Would you say?
I'm sorry.
The use of drones for...
Yeah, absolutely. That's like the
is-
cutting edge, and
yeah.
especially lately, it's drones as first responder essentially being launched without an observer.
Right.
They're being launched from a center, and yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the current state of the art. I would argue actually that state of the art is not cutting edge. Would you agree with that?
Sure.
Okay. So that's kind of the current state of the art. And so potentially those same people would not only alleviate your current risks, but would also be able to expand those capabilities as we consider those for the future, basically. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The service officer's job duties, which I'll talk about more actually in the next agenda item, but I look at them like our utility players. They do so many different things for us, and it's amazing what they're able to do. And that's how they would come into play in that scenario. Is it would alleviate our problems of not having a jailer on duty, and it would also help when there's major incidents, even if we're not using a drone or not using a real-time response center. But having two dispatchers on duty when there's a pursuit is extremely helpful, or two major incidents going on at the same time, or so that I don't have to come in the middle of the night to give them a break from home. Things like that would be extremely helpful. And as another collateral duty, they could also be responsible for the real-time response center and all the fusion that goes on to that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I will say some of the things I've heard I consider to be profoundly unacceptable, and really putting our people at risk in the worst circumstances, and even in some of the more moderate circumstances, it's asking them to do things that they really should not be asked to do. So I hope we can fix that, and I hope that in the process of fixing that, we can get to a point that we can expand some of the capabilities with some of the stuff that we saw.
Are we still on 10 or are we on 11?
Oh, no, I mean, I'm still on,
okay.
if we're going back to one of the previous slides with the,
On the right direction.
there we go.
Got it.
The last one, the previous one. So, okay, so the point though is these are utility players that would be able, if we go to the next slide, I think it is, these are utility players that would be able to do all of those functions and sort of slot in and slot out as needed and provide that coverage. Great. I don't know that I have any more questions for the chief. Are we going to finish up some comments right now? Should we just go to that, or?
Yeah, public comment.
All right, I'll make, I guess before we get to that, I'll make a couple other quick comments since we seem to have done that. What I think was interesting to me about this presentation is it shows a few things. I think it shows how much work has already been done by both our city staff, the fire department, Cal Water, and others. Again, some of these projects have been sort of a long time in the conceptual phase. I think many of them are now moving forward quite rapidly into the implementation phase, or at least, defining what implementation would look like. The Red Flag Day concept, I think, is incredibly important. I think it dovetails into some of what Councilmember Quinn has proposed around strengthening some of our ordinances and making sure that we are able to close areas or get get the right resources in place on those higher risk days. I think it dovetails into, something I've been sort of interested in myself, the Parkland Ranger program and the DDP. Those are very inexpensive programs, and to the chief's point, previously they aren't necessarily replacements for paid employees that are there around the clock, but they do sort of augment, their eyes and ears, their additional capabilities. And again, on days where you're at sort of your max because it's a red flag or there's some other issue, they are more people, and they can potentially drive cars, and they do have some capabilities. Maybe they could even fly drones. And so again, to me, a lot of these things, they fit together, they tell a story, and they show kind of, again, what has already been done. In some cases, we do absolutely have some wins, like the AI cameras that have already been installed, some of the helipods that have already been installed. But then they also kind of lead us to what does it take for the future to make sure that we are really, my goal, I will say this, is not to achieve sort of the check the box, we're safe enough, right? We're sort of doing the minimum. My goal is to be able to go to our residents and say, we have an exceptional wildfire protection program here in Palos Verdes Estates, right? We have looked at the risk, and we haven't just sort of checked the box. We've mitigated it to the point that we've truly reduced it lower than other communities, lower than other places that have the same kind of brush that we have. So I think, whether we'll do everything on these slides, probably not. Money is always an issue, and resources and time. But if we could do a lot of the things on these slides, I think we would get a lot of the way there. So thank you, Chief. I really appreciate your pulling this together. Again, we're already doing a lot of this stuff, but to be able to have it in one place is great.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Let me ask one more question while we have the Assistant Chief here. And I think the answer in the staff report was no, but let me just ask it since we have another visitor with us too. The peninsula currently has 2 of these helipods, correct? What would be A, is that sufficient? And B, what would be the benefit of having one actually within our city somewhere?
Okay, so the city manager and I have spoken about this. So Air Operations Bureau has a map, and on that scale map, we have a disc, and the disc represents 5 miles. So in a perfect world, it's good to have a dip site or a water source every 5 miles for any kind of vertical takeoff aircraft to be able to refill. We have looked at the area, and we think we have areas that could potentially be suitable for an additional helipod. So I would say yes, it would be a great idea. My vision as Assistant Chief here was to always try to have 3. That would provide a perfect triangulation on the peninsula for that 5-mile radius, and also for a load and return time of 3 to 5 minutes, and that's also like the gold standard for helicopters. Load and return every 3 to 5 minutes, and a helipod or a water source or a dip site of some sort every 5 miles.
So from the Rancho Palos Verdes dip site, the furthest extension to the, thanks for the map, the furthest extension to the north, which would be the Valmonte neighborhood, is 6.5 miles, maybe? 7?
Yeah.
6.5 miles.
Good guess.
It's actually measured on Google Maps.
So, no, you had the facts, I was the guess. Interesting.
From where to where?
From the
RPV
City Hall location to the, call it, most northeast location in Valmonte that we'd be responsible for.
It's on the outer edge.
6.x miles, which is a mile and a half or more greater than 5.
But from here to the Met Water one, from here to the Met Water one is exactly 5 miles.
Reservoir.
Interesting.
Exactly. I just put it on Google Maps. Exactly 5.0.
All right. Cool. Well, you said you've had conversations with the city manager. We'll see what happens. My immediate thought process was in collaboration with Cal Water, since they were helpful with a prior grant and they want to put a water tank here. Maybe that's a conversation we could have, and I won't say anything else in public.
I will also say that Supervisor Hahn is also interested in participating.
Cool. That's great.
If you have a location, let's talk.
Yes.
I think that's always been the issue.
Well, yeah, I mean, and like you say, if you're trying to triangulate 5 miles, then one in Rancho Palos Verde, yeah, it seems like, well, probably where Supervisor Hahn wants it is probably more on the RPV San Pedro side, which actually probably makes sense.
I think closer to this side.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to change the golf club you're using, your irons. Come on, that was good. All right. Any public comment on this item? Anybody like to jump up? Everybody.
Oh, everybody.
Everybody seated in the public would like to jump up. All right. John Standing, go ahead.
So this is kind of a general comment, and it applies beyond this specific topic.
Oops, can't have it then. Go ahead.
It applies to this topic very much. And the Mayor Emeritus was touching on it. And the question really in my mind is, how much protection is enough? Why do we necessarily want to improve something that already meets our needs? And I have no expertise in this area, but I imagine the chief or someone in the fire department could tell us, where do we stand in terms of what our protection levels are, instead of just saying, well, we want to be better than Torrance. That's really not a good metric. And so I'll close by suggesting we have champagne tastes and beer budgets.
Yeah, I'm not trying to create a dialogue because you're sitting down, but I think I'd rather not be the Palisades or Altadena would be my response to that. Christine, go ahead.
I just have a quick question. It's a very simple question. You probably can answer it in a nanosecond. You're talking about the water resource for water for the helicopters to dip in to get the water. Is there any consideration of the pools at the high schools? Is that not enough water that they could dip into?
It's the buildings.
Okay, thank you.
So I understand how that would make perfect sense for our helicopters to hover over pools and use their water. I will say that our fire engines do use pool water. We have apparatus in which we can drap or suck water out of swimming pools to refill our fire apparatus. We will not hover our aircraft over inhabited structures or anywhere near a school. So it's very, very difficult for us to find a location that provides a suitable approach and departure. You're a helicopter pilot, you know this. The most dangerous point for a helicopter is when it is in a hover. So then you can imagine our Black Hawk can hold 1,250 gallons times 8 pounds per gallon. It's picking up a tremendous amount of weight. So that is a very dangerous operation, and we don't want it near any homes, any schools, and as few people as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and the reason for that is there's no forward movement to recover from. It's just toast. Darcel? Correct.
I really appreciate the opportunity to happen upon this point, and I hope that you can carry the mail up the chain. I have lived here 30 years next door, and that entire time I've seen a dead space down below. It has never made sense to me how that could be overlooked when the firemen are so jacked up. I would really like to ask the city council to free up that space. I've had conversations with firemen before who have told me there are people on the hill that, and they themselves had families that were contractors that could easily convert that at a very small expense. That would double the space, and at the very least, just give them space to be. So I really hope that we'll do that. I am not in favor of a new city hall. I've said that
We're
many
not
times.
But we're not on the topic.
No, I know, but we are talking about improving the sleeping conditions and therefore working it into a city hall accommodation. That's what I heard. So I'm just addressing what I heard, and I'm saying we have dead space there that's been dead a long time. Let's do it. They could have that put up by next month. Boom.
Sir, did you want to speak?
All right, you're up, I think. Do you want to go?
Sorry, could you state your name again for the clerk's records?
It's Bill Ward. I'm the co-owner of the Pump Pod USA. We make the Helopod. One of the questions was, why is it 5 miles? So he spoke exactly the same thing. CAL FIRE uses that designator for spread. It's not 5 miles apart that's important. It's the 2.5 miles from dip to drop that splits those that makes it critical. Just to let you guys know, the full picture of the peninsula, we're looking to put one down at the Nike missile site, which would give complete coverage of the Palisade Peninsula. Not Palisade, I'm sorry, PV Peninsula.
That's 25 miles.
And have full coverage for that area. So that's the reason why we would have this. So if you look at the 2.5 miles from the reservoir, it falls way short of the golf course. That's why we're looking at that. Water source is always super important, but one of the main reasons why you're putting the helicopter dip tank here is to protect against your high severity zone. Brian will tell you, it takes time to get everybody to respond, the strike teams to respond, and so on and so forth. It doesn't take time for the helicopter to get here.
Right.
That helicopter is going to be your force multiplier while they can assemble and get everybody here to actually get on the ground and fight the fire. The other question that somebody had brought up was, why do we need one if we have two at the mid-peninsula part? It's redundancy. So if you look at the Palisades fire, one of the biggest lessons that they learned was that they had dip sites that got smoked over and could not be utilized. They had dip sites that went out of service because the pumps that were providing water to the tanks had no water. The premier dip site in the entire country got a burn over and their power went out and their pumps weren't working. And if it wasn't for pre-established helipods down at Malibu, pre-established helipods at Camp 8, midline of the ridge, and us giving us our sales demo unit and responding for that, that whole west side would have had a whole lot of problems. But that being said, the last thing that I wanted to do is that we've identified at least 4 or 5 potential stakeholders that are offering to pay for it. And I know that the city's budget, I've heard it here tonight, is very sensitive. And there are also companies that have helped to do it. You've got utilities. The Board of Supervisors have offered. When we installed the one at Rancho PV, the first one, Supervisor Hahn came up to me and said, if there's any more of these that need to be placed here, I want to know about it so I can help pay for it. Board of Supervisors and 7 different Board of Supervisors have helped pay for these and put these in.
Awesome.
So,
thank you.
You got it.
Appreciate you coming. Okay. Any other thoughts or comments? We sort of mixed questions and comments.
We did sort of mix questions and comments that threw me off a little.
Any follow-up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, this is relevant because it was literally today, so I'll mention it in my comment. So earlier today, I hosted about 100 people in downtown LA at a conference center, and it was a joint InfraGard FBI meeting. They call it their annual all hands meeting, and the purpose of the meeting is to basically talk about critical infrastructure and how basically what is the state of the art for defending critical infrastructure. And a lot of what they talk about is sort of nation state attacks, whether those are cyber attacks or other types of attacks. Fire is pretty low on the list for these folks. This is more kind of intentional, terrorism, et cetera, et cetera. But, I think the takeaway that I got from that meeting is we live in a world that is increasingly high threat, right? And I think that in the United States, unfortunately, the biggest example of that was 9/11. Since that, thankfully we haven't had anything of that size, but we certainly have seen, hurricanes, we've seen earthquakes, we've seen other types of natural disasters. And then, almost exactly a year ago, we saw what was arguably the worst natural disaster in the history of Los Angeles County in the form of those fires. And I think that, in many respects, we've been very lucky to not have had, the big one, the big earthquake. We've been very lucky to not have, some of the more catastrophic types of events that we could imagine, at least here in LA County. But, other parts of the U.S. have had their version of that. And there's nothing to say that tomorrow we couldn't have that earthquake. We couldn't have a red flag day that leads to a catastrophe in the Palos Verdes area. And so I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, I didn't actually plan this, intentionally. The FBI was the one that set the date of today for their all hands meeting. But I think that it is very interesting to me to just sort of line all that up, hear what they had to talk about, hear this presentation today. And I agree, it's not, I want to be clear, it's not my goal to go for a gold-plated solution, right?
Order with champagne.
Champagne, whatever you want to call it, right? I mean, there's obviously, Beverly Hills has a real-time crime center that's supposed to be one of the best in the world. Torrance has a real-time crime center that is supposed to be very good. Somewhere on the spectrum, there's the PVE version of that. And it's probably a lot smaller than either of those. And actually, for the record, one of the things that the FBI talked about was a lot of these real-time crime centers and real-time response centers are virtual today. They don't exist in a particular physical space. They're contracted, or they're done in other ways where you don't necessarily have to build a building in order to have the capability, right? And so I think the point is there's lots of ways to do it. It doesn't need to be a champagne budget. Maybe it's the white wine budget. Maybe it's the beer budget. We can obviously talk through the details. But I think, again, as I said earlier, my goal is to not simply check the box and tell residents, oh, yeah, our fire protection's good enough. I think the goal is to really look at this, to continue to examine it, to study it, and then to push forward with those things that will actually have the most payoff, for the particular circumstances of our city.
Do you have any requests, or would you like any council direction for staff, but to provide staff for direction on anything specifically?
I think some of these things are already actively providing the necessary support on, like the Cal water tank and things like that. I'd like to see staff just continue looking at all of the topics they've talked about. Some of them are essentially no cost to the city. And for those that are obviously major budget items, like adding significant numbers of personnel, I just say, be ready to bring it forward as a proposal at some point in the future when it's appropriate, and for council discussion. I don't know that any of these are weeks away or even months away. I think they're for staff to study, analyze, and be ready to really give us the full-blown proposal when the time is right.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to hitchhike on that a little bit. I think that we ought to ask staff at least annually to revisit this type of presentation with the current updates that may have transpired in the previous 12 months and how it ties together with the long-range planning and the budgeting and the needs of this community. I don't think we should let this be one and done. I think it should be a living document that we maintain in going forward.
So I asked that we write the letter to Torrance. Do I have two nods on that?
You have a nod? Yes.
I agree. All the nods, or most of them. The other one is, are you all comfortable with, or are some of you comfortable with exploring revenue options and locations and whatever else, if or not, a third location for that makes sense?
I'd like to see that for the helipod, yeah. I mean, especially if it can be mostly grant funded, seems like a no-brainer.
Yes.
It's worth the exploration, yes.
I'm not saying do it. I'm saying check it out.
Oh, you already have 3 votes? Yeah, it's fine.
Nope. I love it. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just to add to that, I mean, look, I think it remains to be seen, and I know Chief Kane knows this. We're open to talking about this at any time, especially if it doesn't cost us anything. The other kind of takeaways that I got out of this is, I think it's time now. Our staff member Kristen Joe's been on board, I don't know, 6 months, 9 months. I think it's now time to turn some of her energy. She already does, but really kind of focus in on some of those volunteer programs. Parkland Rangers is one that really comes to mind. I mean, I think if you market it correctly, it's like, are you already hiking the city? Well, yeah, let us know what you see.
Well, it historically was much more active.
Yeah, and we don't need to go in. I think you all know, and I could, without even knowing, I could tell you exactly how things like that kind of fall off. Sure. Volunteer organizations and groups like that take a lot of paid staff time to keep alive. There's no other way around it. But it's good. The ordinance are coming, and got some ideas on messaging Zone 0. I talked to it, but I've got some ideas on that. And yeah, that's it. So I think there's quite a bit of takeaways. I appreciate all of your comments. I think Mayor Pro Tem, we promoted you since you first came up with this idea for this topic. We put a lot of time and energy together with Chief Halinga to kind of figure out what this was going to look like, and I think it showed. So thank you for that, and thank you to Chief Halinga. So we're good.
And thank you, Assistant Chief, for coming. Very much, both of you. All right, onward. Item 11, City Council consideration of police service officer overhire. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Kemps. Let me load this next presentation.
I know what Tamika feels like. She's landing helicopter.
At least there's not audio now.
Should have slowed my speech down a little. Sorry.
So again, thank you, and this agenda item, we're going to talk about service officers, but it honestly has no correlation to the previous agenda item. There was an acute need that arose at the end of last month, and that's why we're bringing this before the council tonight. For those of you that were on the council in May of 2023, this slide deck might look a little familiar. I took some slides out, but at that time, I was seeking approval from the council to add another service officer as a permanent position for the 24-25 fiscal year. To just have a little overview of the job duties of a police service officer. Their primary function is to be 911 dispatchers. They also answer a majority of the phone calls that come into the police station. They are responsible to be jailers. Last calendar year, we had 250 bookings, people in our jail. Wow. They monitor our automated license plate reader alerts, along with the Pano AI, the fire detection camera alerts that we just spoke of. They receive child abuse and elder abuse notifications. They process records, reports, and citations. They keep our lobby open 24/7. They monitor our internal security camera system. And they also handle a lot of ancillary duties as assigned, including managing our property and evidence, which is it's a very critical component of a police department to make sure that you have a proper chain of custody on your evidence and managing the property accordingly. In 2017, we had a total of, we had one lead service officer, and we had 8 service officers. So these are our jailers and dispatchers. Along with that, we had one service officer assigned to full-time to property and evidence. And then we had one executive assistant custodian records. So for all these job duties, this was 2017 again, we had 11 full-time employees to cover all of that. After the failure of Measure D, we had the 2018, the first McCrary study, and in that we eliminated 2 of our service officers, one of which was assigned to property and evidence. And but we did retain our full-time executive assistant / custodian records. So in 2018, we dropped 2 and brought us down to 9 full-time employees. In 2021, we went through another study. This one was by Mike McCurry and Dan Dryling. This study made several recommendations, one of which was to outsource the day-to-day jail operations and to eliminate 1 additional service officer and to eliminate the executive assistant custodian records. In June of that year, in 2021, we successfully entered a 1-year contract with the city of Redondo Beach in which we housed or booked inmates primarily at their jail. We thought that it worked okay. The proximity was working for us. And I think the next slide I'll go over how many people we booked there, but this left us with 7 full-time employees for these job duties. But we also had a contract with the city of Redondo Beach, which ended up, slides are stuck. So when we had that contract, it ended up costing us $40,000. We booked 138 people at the Redondo Beach jail. The average time out of the city for the police officers to travel down to Redondo Beach, book the inmate, and return was estimated at 1 hour. After that 12-month period, the city of Redondo Beach decided not to renew the contract. And in July of 2022, Chief Best at the time brought options before the council, and it was decided to add 1 service officer. And council directed staff to pursue a contract with the Torrance Police Department for jail operations. So this model provided the department with 8 full-time employees plus a contract. Unfortunately, after several months of discussions with Torrance PD under Chief Best, they decided they didn't want to enter into a contract. I continued that conversation as acting chief. I actually reached out to the Torrance chief recently too, and are trying to approach that subject and have not had any success. So this is where we are at today. Thankfully, we have no vacancies. We are at full staff. One of our service officers is going through our in-house training program. But this is essentially what our schedule looks like day to day. We have, so the yellow highlights indicate when there is no jailer on duty. I do want to note that this scheduling model accounts for 1 service officer on some type of temporary leave, whether it's a week of vacation or training. And about a half, if not more, of the time we have at least 1 person on that type of leave. So when this happens, let's say we have a Tuesday night and there's no jailer on duty, and we come across a situation where we arrest someone. Sometimes an officer has to come in from the field. We'll make efforts to call our off-duty staff to see if anybody can come in to cover the jail. If it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, those calls most likely go unanswered. But we do what we can to make sure that we're taking care of the city as long as required mandates to have a staff member here at the facility to monitor the inmate. So the reason I'm here tonight before you is towards the end of last year, we were informed by 2 of our service officers that they had a light duty status, which prohibited them from working in the jail. A lot of this remains confidential, the reasons for it, so I won't get into that. But these 2 are still working. They're extremely helpful to us on the schedule, but they are unable to work in the jail whatsoever. So with these changes, this is what our current schedule looks like. So there are times when we don't have anyone available to book people at all. If you look at Sunday in particular, we don't have anybody that would be able to process an inmate. So while these two service officers mentioned are on a light duty status right now, we do expect them to begin a state protected family medical leave in the new status in the near future. So that duration is uncertain, but it's potentially up to a year from right now. So if we did not take any action, the schedule that you're looking at right now is what it would look like with the amount of leave that we're going to experience. So we wanted to present two different options to the council. The option A is what staff is recommending. And in this, sorry, I'm a little lost on my notes. So we're asking the city council to authorize the overhire of 2 police service officers for the next 12 months. After the 12-month period, the number of positions would return to the authorized level of 7 just through natural attrition, which means something such as a retirement or a resignation. The only natural attrition that we know of that's on the horizon for this classification is for a service officer who has told us she plans to retire in March of next year. Of course, there's some potential unforeseen circumstances that might increase this attrition rate, but this is what we can foresee right now. So if we went this model after 12 months and when that natural attrition occurs, the staffing level would return to the approved allocation of 7 service officers. The fiscal impact for this for the year, this fiscal year, is anticipated to be $81,000. That consists of $69,000 in prorated salary for the 2 overhires and approximately $12,000 in hiring and training expenses.
And Luke, I'm sorry,
Yes.
just to clarify one thing.
Sure.
Even if we did this would essentially just get you back to more or less the same shift that you had before, which was already the highly, I would say, inappropriately minimalistic shift that you showed us earlier.
Correct. This is trying to get us back to the status quo, what has previously been approved.
For a few years.
I have requested in the past for us to increase that number.
Yeah.
Because the council, I think in 2022, maybe it was 21, essentially said, hey, have this many service officers plus a jail contract. We never, that was after the Redondo, after the Redondo jail contract failed, council said, have your 7 service officers plus a contract.
Right.
And we were going to budget for that contract, but we have never been successful in entering into a contract. So yes, so the proposal tonight is to try to get us back to the status quo.
And the budget for that contract, if I remember, was
The Redondo contract was $50,000. I don't remember if there was a number set when we were discussing reaching out to Torrance. But with this option of going through an overhire, we want to bring a strong candidate pool. This would not be a temporary position. It would be something that the person would have job security. And we also want to be able to capitalize on the investment of the hiring process. As I discussed, it's about $3,000 each to get them through a background investigation. It's another $3,000 to get them trained up for the in-house training. If the new position stays in effect for 12 months, we have required training that we have to send them to. So the Board of State Community Corrections requires a month-long course for jailers within the first 12 months of employment. So it's different from the police academy. If you want to be a police officer, you have to go to the academy first, and then you go into field training. For jailers, they allow you to hire somebody, get them trained up in your own jail, but within the first 12 months, they have to go to that training. And then there's also a dispatch school that's about a month long also. Both of those courses have a combined cost of approximately $5,000 per employee. So if we don't meet the requirements of sending somebody to the jail course within the first 12 months, we do get audited by the BSCC, and if we receive an unfavorable audit, we could risk losing reimbursement from the state, which I believe is about $7,000 for us. So each year, the BSCC reimburses approximately $7,000 for training costs for our jailers.
I assume it also increases our liability if something happened to a prisoner?
Absolutely.
tremendously, probably.
Yes, it's fully burden rate, prorated for the rest of the fiscal year.
Well, your slide says salary, so is it fully loaded?
I'm sorry, it is, I know that's fully loaded. Yes, it is. So this also provides a better stability for our department. It includes better succession planning and retention of staff, and definitely is going to reduce the amount of forced overtime and burnout, and with our overall goal of ensuring that officers can stay in the field more frequently and keeping our response times low.
The estimated contract amount with Torrance from the July 26, 2022 staff report is $64,500.
Okay, thank you. The second option that we want to present before council is to have it be a temporary service officer position, which means as soon as the 2 employees come back from their leave, then the new hires that we brought on would be laid off essentially. So the fiscal impact for this fiscal year is exactly the same because we do expect them to be on in July. The difference here is that there's less of a commitment to that person that we hire, and which equates to a less of a long-term financial impact for the city. And that concludes my presentation. I'm sure there's questions I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you for that presentation. I've got a couple questions. With respect to the fiscal impact of $81,000 for this year, do you have a department vacancy gap, for instance, that would cover that?
We have vacancies in the police officer position, but the salary savings there are essentially being eaten up by overtime that we need to backfill the minimum staffing levels for that classification.
So all of your gap would go towards overtime. So this would be an additional cost.
Correct.
From an FMLA perspective, if you can remind me, is that going to short-term, long-term disability, or is that 100% the responsibility of the city? In terms of
that is a very complicated answer for this particular circumstance, and I don't know if I can get too much into the details there. But I think the most that I can say is we reasonably can expect this to last a year from now.
Maybe an answer offline?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Well, your staff report says that we have to pay the people, so if somebody's going to take a year of leave, we have to pay them their full salary.
Yeah.
And certainly not in the private, that's not true in the private sector.
It could be.
It means we have to hold their job, doesn't mean we pay them.
Get into the long-term, short-term disability. We might not have to pay them during that time, but when that takes effect is relatively complex, and that's why George went to an LCW conference last week.
Another thing to mention is that, it's case dependent, and obviously when you have these instances, there's other hourly allowances such as vacation time, sick time, and so forth that employees can utilize. So that's why the amount is probably going to be the same that the city would be spending.
How long does it take to fill these positions typically? Like let's say we approve this tonight and you started to look for these roles, approximately how long would it take to fill?
So there's 2 ways to do that for such an immediate need. So we do have some police service aides. Those are our part-time employees. They are interested in taking these jobs on as in an acting capacity. So theoretically, we could move those people into an acting service officer capacity while we go through a relatively normal testing process. And the testing process for dispatchers, you have to take a written test. So that, I would say that's at least a month out from now. And then you have to do interviews after that. So maybe a month and a half, and then backgrounds take 3 to 4 months. So, the full hiring process is probably about 4 or 5 months from scratch.
And if you if you put a PSA into an acting role, are you hiring a PSA?
At that point, we probably would not, because it is a temp. We don't want to stack too deep. They would be in an acting role as they go through the testing process with everyone else in the candidate pool. If they're successful, that's wonderful. We're already kind of off the ground and running. But they would have to go through the same background test. They have to take the same dispatch test, and if they were unsuccessful in any of those points of the process, then we would have to remove them.
Yeah, one more.
I think Craig had another question.
Yeah, just one more question. It's for Carrie. And I have a question regarding the overall budget. And are there any other offsets available? I know we're in a deficit position. This sounds like the needs assessment is spot on. But the question is, where do we find the money? And do we have the reserves to pay it, right? So your thoughts, Carrie, on any other offsets that are out there in the fiscal world?
I mean, look, on the spot, no.
He couldn't find it on the trees.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, we're constantly looking for ways. I mean, we another item was approved related to staffing tonight, on the consent calendar where we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're moving this money here, we're shifting that. Just thinking out loud, we have the finance director position that's available, but that money's going to LSL, not LCW, LSL. And I don't think that we have any other open positions upstairs. So I don't have any salary savings. George is trying to telepathically tell me nothing. Yeah, I mean, I think Councilmember Quinn, I think that the mayor said it best. We couldn't scrape together money for the tree budget. We had to come back to you. I think this was we didn't know where our additional needs were. We didn't plan to find or re-find a corrupted stormwater line up the hill. But I think we all knew after the budget was passed that what we projected that deficit to be wasn't going to be the same.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So going back to option B, so is option B kind of that scenario where we started, to me, our PSAs.
Yep.
Okay. They should sort of be a natural pipeline. Well, I guess there's a pipeline, either probably the dispatch jailer route or police officer route. They're on, I would think, one of those paths. I wouldn't think you're a PSA forever. I would think you're trying to get to somewhere else.
Right.
So, so it seems like, so were you kind of saying that path of having the PSA acting dispatcher? Is that kind of option B?
No, not really. What I was trying to explain is that we have like an immediate need, like right now. Like we need to have more jailers. So to fill that jailer role while the two current service officers are still in the dispatch role, right? Like we have two dispatchers that are still dispatching but can't be jailers. Mm-hmm. Like I need two jailers. It's much. The training is a lot less to work the jail. So dispatch is much more complicated. There's so much multitasking going on that it takes more time to train somebody up in that capacity. So the plan would be to have the police service aides move into an acting service officer role, get them trained up in the jail, and fill that vacancy like immediate, while they're still going through the full vetting and testing process to become a permanent employee as a service officer.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but the distinction we're talking about here is the difference between hiring a permanent position that is an authorized position for a police service officer versus authorizing a temporary service officer position. So if we go with option B, we're not really creating a permanent job. So the people that will be interested in it are different, potentially. The recruiting looks different, the hiring looks different, so forth and so on. And then when the leave is over, those jobs just evaporate automatically.
Correct.
Versus option A, but it doesn't change who we're drawing from. Automatic. In other words, the PSAs could theoretically apply for the role in either option A or option B, if they wanted to.
Let's go back to her question.
Yeah, but that answers the distinction between A and B.
Yeah, option B is a temporary role, like, I'm not going to name the service officers, but I'll use a different name. If Jan is the one on leave and Jan comes back in 12 months, then the person we hired as a temporary gets laid off.
Does any of this clarify your question, or do you have more?
That is the answer to her question.
No, I'm not asking you.
Derek, I'm not asking you.
I am the mayor asking the council
Oh, my
member if her
God,
question's
stop
satisfied.
assuming that you understand what my question is.
And
So
if I
do
could-
we have public service officers that are kind of ready to?
We have ones that are interested.
Oh, okay.
But
I mean, I'm always interested in succession planning.
yes,
For sure.
we've talked to them, and we have. Yeah, that's what I talked about. Yes. So so either way, you go with option A or option B, our plan would be to have them be acting service officers in the very short
In
term.
the very short.
Very short term, while we open up a recruitment.
Yeah.
If we go with option A, the recruitment will look normal, like you are applying to be a dispatcher and a jailer, and you have job security. If we go with option B, the recruitment, I believe we will reduce our candidate pool significantly, because the recruitment will be, hey, here's a 12-month job for you, and pretty much as soon as you're through the process, we're going to lay you off when our regular employees come back.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So what's our financial obligation on those layoffs?
I think he said we don't know, right? I mean, we really kind of
Well,
have to have a handle on that to pick.
For this fiscal
A or
year,
option B.
for the fiscal impact for this fiscal year is not different between the two options. The difference between the two options is we have a commitment to a permanent employee with option A, and we don't have a commitment with option B. And if you hire somebody, going through the turnover that we've seen in the police department, when you hire somebody on such a short-term basis, it's really easy for them to leverage that into another hiring position, getting hired at a different agency when they already have that title, or they start going through that training.
Sure. Well, option A is actually a request to increase headcount of the police department by 2 people, which is really a different conversation. And it's laid on top of this temporary 2 people that have to go out on temporary leave. Yeah, option B is talking about you have 2 people who are going, are going to go out on leave, and presumably you're going to come back. They might not, right?
That's correct.
But presumably they're going to come back. And then you're left with these 2 employees. And this concept of natural attrition, I mean, I've been sitting in this chair for 8 years. Natural attrition, never attritions. So I think that we have to understand that this is because then it's that, right? Because you're going to hire 2 extra people. The 2 other people option B says, hey, when the 2 other people come back, the temporary people have to go. And you got to go back to your old life or whatever your old position was. Option A says we're going to increase headcount by 2 people. If these 2 people come back from leave, we're not eliminating those 2 people. We're just hoping somebody retires or somebody doesn't come back, and then we'll go to 7. So, I just want us to call it what it is. And if we want to have a conversation about increasing headcount by 2 people, that's totally fine. But let's not bury it in thinking, we're making this temporary coverage while 2 people go out on medical leave who will presumably be back. I don't think we're calling this what it is.
Well, let me add one half piece to that.
Okay.
We already have noticed that someone intends to retire out of a position.
Correct. She's been talking about it for quite some time, and she's given us a date of March of 27.
And we've, sorry to directly counter you, but we've seen sergeants retire. We've seen numerous retirements.
But then we never eliminate the head count. We keep the head count, and then
we've
we
already
refill it.
slimmed the freaking daylights out of
That's
the
true.
entire...
Then let's have that discussion.
All right.
Because that's true. That discussion I will buy that says, you know what, we agreed to a head count of 7 when we were going to outsource the jail. We didn't. We outsourced the jail for a little while. Now the jail's not outsourced. So really we need 9. And if that's the conversation, that's fine. And if we really need 9, and we're all agreeing we need 9 forever, whether or not the people come back from leave or don't come back from leave, we need 9. If they don't come back from leave, we got to fill those spots, fine. Then let's have that conversation. But let's not pretend we're temporarily increasing and shuffling it around. It insults people's intelligence. My opinion. One opinion.
My intelligence seems to be intact.
Okay.
Councilmember McGowan.
Go to public comment.
Do you have any questions?
I have no questions. I'd like to go to public comment.
Okay, let's go to public comment.
I have one question.
Oh, you have one question?
For the city attorney, yeah. So actually 2 questions. So if we go with option B, can we require the existing PSAs to take that role on an acting basis? Can we basically say, we have this need, right? We have this need. We want you to go into an acting role ASAP to fill this. Can we basically just push them into that role temporarily? Or
against their will.
We're not doing it against their will. We're saying,
well, I don't mean against their will.
Available in an acting role. Would anybody like to do it? And they say, oh, me, I'll do it.
Right, but they may or may not. You can't force them into a different job description. Okay. If we go with the temporary option, let's say they do take that role. Let's say they raise their hand and they say, all right, I want to be in that role. We have 2 of them. And then the authorization for the temporary role ends at the end of the 12 months. Are they at that point automatically laid off from our city, or do they get to go back to their PSA role?
I would say that they return to the PSA role. That's why we're not going to backfill the PSA roles.
Okay, because we wouldn't backfill the PSA roles, so they would be allowed to.
But there's consequences to that.
Sure.
Then tires aren't getting marked. Some of the details they need to do that they, whatever, right?
Yeah, there will be a reduction in parking enforcement and like some other clerical duties that the PSAs currently handle for sure.
Okay. Okay. So there's basically, from the perspective of actually filling this need in the short term, you believe that we would have 2 people raise their hands and do that voluntarily, whether or not
I believe
it's
so.
temporary or not. Okay. No. Okay. All right. Those are
Questions complete. Any public comment on this? Had enough?
Oh, no.
Oh, come on up, John.
He really enjoys this. You should run for council.
You don't want me up there.
I don't know about that.
Go ahead. My comment is that option B appears to describe the circumstances more accurately than option A. And I agree that if you want to hire more people, that should be a separate discussion. My 2 cents.
That was like 20 seconds. That was impressive. All right. Anybody else? No? Okay. Discussion?
So this won't shock anyone that I'm in favor of option A. And the reason I'm in favor of option A is, number one, we already know that 50% of it, we have a planned retirement, right? These are also high attrition positions. I'm sure the chief could tell us in more detail how quickly these turn over, but they do turn over relatively quickly. We've seen our police department overall, frankly, turn over relatively quickly. So when you have 7 or 8 of these people, the idea that nobody's going to retire, over 2 or 3 years is very low, or leave for other reasons. The other thing that I've picked up from this conversation and some of the previous conversations we've had is that we are running this department beyond the red line. And I actually think, and Chief, if you could go back to the model showing the current hours that we ask these people to do, I mean, more days than not, we can't put somebody in our jail without pulling in an overtime sworn officer or the chief himself or, some other, expensive and something that really interferes with, frankly, people's lives, right? We're asking them to drive in from out of the city. And I just think that that's an unbearable situation, right? I mean, it puts stress on people. It's why we have all this turnover, in my opinion. I frankly can't believe that that's what we've been asking them to do for the past few years. I don't think it's right. Most of these are female service officers, and in many cases, we're asking them to be, alone in a station. And I think it's just wrong. I think it's morally wrong, frankly, and it's infuriating to me. So, to me, option A moves the needle in the right direction. It doesn't even go far enough. But, I accept that what we're really trying to do is solve this in the future when we hopefully have a different city budget situation. I think for now, at least this stabilizes us and prevents us from running this even deeper into the red line. So I'm strongly in favor of option A.
David?
I'm not going to repeat everything that's already been said by Derek.
Okay.
I support option A 100%.
Craig?
I support option A. But I will make a comment that hopefully our revenue issue is dealt with in the future. Otherwise, we'll be having different conversations down the road.
Yeah, I was just going to say, is everybody prepared to have to deal with cutting it because you just added more back to it? Sorry, go ahead.
No more comments. Need my comments?
I'll move that we.
No, not yet. 1 second. Let me make my comment. Then you can move to whatever city you'd like. Just kidding.
I can't do much more of this.
We're out of here. Hang on. Here it goes. We've been around for at least a police study and a half. We've seen this get eviscerated. We tried to contract it to Redondo. That worked for a year, maybe. We coincidentally ended up with half the arrests, and I don't think our crime went down. Then we got it back. We couldn't contract with Torrance. Now we're facing this situation where we're upside down. Fiscally, I don't know, but I don't feel like we have a choice. And I feel like the discussion is and I think it's admitting that every police study that squeezed it down further helped less. At some point, we got to face the fact that we need what we need or we don't have it.
Probably true.
You can move now.
I move that we adopt option A.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against?
Me.
4-1. All right. Mayor and council member reports. Start at the end, Craig.
I just have one quick one here. As you may know, I'm a delegate on the South Bay Cities Council of Government. They recently sponsored a cyber presentation, and want to thank Derek Lazaro for attending and heading up that presentation. It included himself, an associate at his firm, and 2 FBI special agents in the room talking about cyber issues as it relates to cities and what cities can do. I know that there's slides available from that presentation. I haven't seen them, but I'll ask Carrie if they do come in, would you forward them? I would appreciate that. But Derek, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Actually, follow-up question on that. I thought I saw, or maybe you mentioned in a previous meeting, that that discussion about the housing trust thing. Is that going to be an agenda item coming to us to discuss, or we just don't participate in that? I mean, was that? I forget. Did you say you were going to?
I'll let Carrie speak first.
Yeah. At this point, the Housing Trust is still working out the details of it. It has not been officially formed. They need a certain number of cities to join in on the Housing Trust. So we haven't, just with our workload, we haven't taken this on yet. We're kind of in a wait and see. My recommendation to the City Council is a wait and see attitude.
I'm sorry, it's getting a little bit late. I'm trying to understand what you just said, and my hearing's getting late. Did you just say we were running for the hills?
Yeah, I mean, we're like,
running as fast as we possibly
Yeah.
can away from that agenda item? Was that what you said?
No, I'm saying I'm not addressing it right now, but,
okay.
but if you want me to
Okay.
run from the hills,
I was suggesting that you run all the way away from the hills.
I have much bigger priorities
Okay,
than this
okay.
project.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to make sure we didn't somehow land ourselves in it without a discussion. Okay, very good. So I had our monthly sanitation meeting last week. Actually, I have a couple follow-up items for the Public Works Director. It was interesting, in the big rains, there were a few manhole failures, and which means then, sewage comes up through the manholes. And what they really, I think what we figured out is that, we really have to go back to every individual city's got to be doing kind of inspections of their manholes and making sure that they have good integrity and stuff. So I have a couple of things to send to you. And then every household should have also received a mailer for, there's a new, it's in the public noticing phase of increasing rates for your sanitation services. So every household should have received a mailer. I know I got mine maybe late last week, maybe Saturday, something like that. So every household in LA, in our district, will be getting that. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you. David, welcome back.
I wasn't involved in anything in the last few weeks.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah, I can't either.
But we're glad you're well.
Thank you.
Just to see you upright.
He is taller.
At the moment.
Derek.
I just want to thank Mayor Kemps for his presentation. I think it was really well done and very balanced, and yeah, thank you for that.
Sure. Anything else? Do you want to mention?
Oh, yeah, I will. I will embarrass Derek a little bit more. Sure. That the cyber security sounded like such a riveting topic when I just agreed to go. It was unbelievable. It was so fascinating. You found that you totally struck the right balance between like
encouragement and fear.
I was gonna say. Smart and not smart, and kind of hit the middle ground. But more importantly, and I mentioned this to you, and the mayor asked me to mention this again, I'm going to work with you to consider bringing this to the league conference in the fall, if you're up for it, and make this one of the topics.
Sure.
I think it is ripe for it, and I think my city manager friends will be really, really mad at me for bringing this topic up because it just equals more work, but I think it's really, really important work. So
It is work. Yeah.
Off to Sacramento we go.
It is an amazingly important and critical topic, in particular in government. I think private corporations have, been steeped in, at least a lot of us in cybersecurity and paying attention and policy, and especially in a business that requires so much compliance. But I don't think government gets enough exposure, and to have someone that has all of the knowledge and experience that you have and the background that you have, being willing to do that. Sorry, I don't mean to blow you up. I'm just saying it's critical. I mean, we have a neighboring city not on the peninsula that got massively hacked and really paid the price. And so I've tried, while I've been here, to implement what little things we can actually implement and do in our budget. And I think those things have helped a lot. And I think people pay more attention than they have, and so thank you for doing it. Grateful.
Thank you.
On that note, nothing else to add. Appreciate everyone coming. Thank you for the public comment. Thank you for coming. And we are adjourned to Tuesday.